Am I the asshole for not trying harder to inform my ex about our son's passing? Now I'm being accused of hiding it out of spite. I apologize in advance for any formatting issues as I'm on my phone, and this is a throwaway account since my ex follows my main one. My partner and I, both 28 at the time, had been together for 4 years when I found out I was pregnant. Initially, I didn't want to go through with the pregnancy because my job had promising opportunities for advancement, but after many discussions, we decided to have the baby. At around 20 weeks, just after finding out the baby's gender, my partner disappeared. He stopped answering calls and messages, and I eventually found out through his mother that he had moved back in with her, feeling overwhelmed by the situation. Although he continued to contribute financially by transferring his share of the bills, I had no contact with him. I even tried visiting him, but there was no response. By the time I was 27 weeks along, I gave up trying to reach out and accepted the reality of becoming a single mother. I prepared for the baby on my own, buying everything necessary. At 31 weeks, I started experiencing pain but dismissed it as Braxton Hicks contractions. Shortly before 32 weeks, my water broke and I went into labor. My baby was born prematurely and was immediately taken to the NICU. I tried to contact my ex and his mother again, but there was no response. Less than a week later, my son passed away due to complications from his early birth. Once more, I attempted to reach my ex and his mother, leaving voicemails and messages, but still heard nothing. The following weeks were a blur as my parents helped me arrange the funeral. They also tried to contact my ex and his family without success. Eventually, I stopped trying. I felt broken and couldn't bear the weight of trying to reach out any longer. After the funeral, I told my family not to bother with any further attempts. 5 months after our son's birth and death, my ex suddenly appeared at my flat. He let himself in while I was out, and when I returned, he immediately became hostile, demanding to see our son. When I told him what had happened, he became extremely upset and stormed out. Shortly after, his mother and other family members bombarded me with angry calls and messages, accusing me of deliberately withholding the news of our son's death out of spite. It has been nearly 3 weeks since this confrontation, and they continue to treat me horribly. When I confided in my sister, she said that while she understands I was going through a lot, she feels that I could have tried harder to inform them. This comment has left me questioning whether I should have done more. Did I truly not do enough? Was I wrong to stop trying? I lost my son too and was struggling immensely. I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong here. Edit. Thank you all so much for your responses. I'm sorry I haven't replied to any, but reading them has been overwhelming. Writing this out and reliving the experience has been incredibly hard. I'm going to drink some wine, read your kind words, and cry myself to sleep. I've recently moved into a new flat, and thankfully, my dad has covered the cost of a private therapist who I see regularly. Second edit. I didn't expect this post to get so much attention, but if you happen to read this, Lewis, read it carefully, then leave me alone. I'm going to show my therapist this post and discuss it with her. I appreciate all of your support, even though it made me cry a lot. I'm signing off for now, but thank you again. Update post. 2.5 months later. The original post was locked, but I've received messages asking how I'm doing, so before I close this account, I wanted to let everyone know that I'm alright. The move went smoothly, and I'm far enough away that there's no risk of running into my ex or his family. I've changed my number and deleted all social media, so I haven't heard from them in about 6 weeks. My sister apologized for her earlier comments, but our relationship isn't quite the same. I'm still in therapy and trying to move forward. I visit my son's grave when I can, and thankfully, my ex and his family don't know where it is, so I can do so in peace. Thank you all for your support. I've found myself revisiting the previous post many times over the last few months, and it has helped more than I can express. This is my final update, and I'm leaving this account now, but I want to say thank you again. Relevant comments. When asked to clarify what her sister said or was thinking, my dad was very upset when he found out what my sister said to me. She claimed she didn't realize how much effort we had put into contacting my ex and thought I had just given up like when I was pregnant. However, this seems like an excuse because she was aware of our attempts. Although her apology seemed genuine, and she has since criticized how my ex and his family have behaved, our relationship remains strained. Final update, 8 months later. I had forgotten about Reddit until I was clearing out some apps for phone space, so I thought I'd give one final update before saying goodbye. I wish I could say everything is amazing now, new job, new partner and all that. But it's nothing quite that exciting. I moved into my new flat last year and it's nice, though I had forgotten how expensive it is to live alone. I'm managing though. I did get a new job, similar pay and role to the old one, but my ex doesn't know where it is. There was no dramatic encounter or anything. I just wanted a fresh start along with my new home. As for dating, I haven't felt ready to get back into it yet. I'm taking things one step at a time. My relationship with my sister remains limited, LC. Although she apologized for what she said, I still feel hurt, especially knowing she occasionally still talks to my ex. It's not some dramatic revelation, she just chats with him if they bump into each other, but it still stings after everything that happened. I'm still in therapy and even doubled the length of my sessions around the 1-year anniversary of my son's passing. Thankfully, my ex didn't show up at his grave when I visited, or at least not when I was there. That visit was incredibly painful, and I spent several days afterward just crying and drinking. It was a tough time. My dad has been my rock throughout all of this. I'm still paying him back for all the support he's given me, though he waves it off whenever I mention it. We've developed a lovely Sunday morning routine of drinking tea, catching up and maybe watching some F1 together. It's simple, but it means the world to me. Overall, life is calm, which is a relief. No drama, no contact from my ex or his family, and no major life changes, just one foot in front of the other. I reread everything I posted last year and revisited many of the comments, and I want to say thank you again. I was in a really dark place, and it was hard to see that I wasn't the villain in this story. A mix of therapy and all the comments helped me come to terms with that. So thank you all, this is my final goodbye. Take care everyone. I exposed my wife's secret affair with my friend by printing every hidden message they sent each other. For the sake of the narrative, let's call her Mia. My wife, 26F, cheated on me, 27M, with a friend of mine, Jack. Background: we met at another friend's wedding when I was 22. She was the bride's friend, and I was the groom's friend. Therefore they seated us at the same table hoping we would cross paths. I was quite surprised by her beauty when I first saw her. We discovered we shared a lot when she sat down and we started to chat. We clicked right away. After supper, we lingered for a little before heading to the dance floor. Throughout the evening, we drank and danced. We ended up kissing in the center of the dance floor, and when we broke off, our friends, the bride and groom, came over to ask what was going on between us. Playing matchmaker made them really happy. We basically ignored it and proceeded on through our evening. We parted without sharing numbers, but approximately 1 week later I received a text from her asking me out. The bride had supplied my number. Of course, I answered yes and developed a relationship out of it. The relationship was excellent. Apart from little disputes, we never truly battled and it was never anything major. About 2 years into our relationship, I finally asked her to wed me. We were married less than a year later. Just before our first anniversary, we were married for a little more than a year when everything collapsed upon me. I could find small irritations in anything. Her phone got more guarded, girls' nights grew more frequent, and our sex life nearly non-existent. I had brought this up several times, but she dismissed it, saying I was letting my fears control me. She would carry on as though what I sensed and tried to express had no relevance to her. I grew much colder as a result. We seldom spoke unless it was something vital. I stopped kissing her goodbye as I headed to work. I grabbed her phone and laptop one night while she slept, skimming her texts, emails, and messenger apps but found nothing. Inspired by stories on this site, I decided to investigate her car. I noticed a second phone as I reached for her keys and glanced in her car. Though I knew right away what was happening, I wanted all the proof for when I called her out. She should not have spoken anything like that, something which had only happened once or anything dumb like that. Searching the phone, I discovered just one number. I linked the phone to my computer, went over every note and printed every message along with every picture. I looked at divorce lawyers late tonight. Reading profiles of lawyers for hours in my home office, I came upon one that appealed to me and emailed him. But because it being a Saturday, he wasn't at the office. Then I wanted to find out who the guy was, so I grabbed my phone, entered the number and was prepared to claim I was from Spectrum since who doesn't have Spectrum. Jack's contact then suddenly showed up though. It took me a minute to arrange 2 and 2 together, but I blew up when I did. In my workplace, I was screaming and berating. My wife entered the door to check on me. Upon seeing her, I advised her to get the fuck out. She went to our room and locked the door. I had never raised my voice over a reasonable level or cursed at my wife. I silently raged from my office all day, just staring at the wall. I asked if he would come with me after phoning one of my friends, the wedding's groom, to let him know I needed to get a drink. He inquired whether I was all right, so he must have detected something in my voice. I admitted to him I truly wanted a drink and I wasn't. I gathered all the printouts silently and headed to the bar. Arriving first, I ordered 4 Jack pictures along with a beer. As my friend Ted came and inquired about what was going on, I was on my last shot. Mia was cheating, I told him right out. He showed me sympathy. I inquired whether he wanted to know with whom. He seemed clearly agitated when I told him it was Jack. He was the one first introducing Jack to me. All he could say was, "I'm sorry," over and over. Jack and I have never been quite close. Although we wouldn't invite one another to hang together, we were friendly if we happened to run across each other at a get-together. Having just discovered this and hadn't even spoken to Mia or a lawyer yet, I advised Ted not to discuss this with anyone. If his wife questioned what was wrong with me, I advised him to tell her I was having trouble at work. He concurred. Most of the evening we drank and chatted. Then, at approximately 3 in the morning, I got an Uber and headed home. Since I phoned Ted, it was the first time I checked my phone. There were missed calls and a lot of texts from Mia, asking where I was, when I would be home, and whether I was okay. When I got home she was curled up on the couch napping. I simply went to sleep walking up to our bedroom. She was in bed when I woke up, so I got ready and left the house. I went to pick up my car, head to my office and buried myself in work for the day. About 10 o'clock, I headed home. My wife surprised me by showing up to welcome me and mentioning she had dinner. "Would you like her to heat it?" she inquired. I turned her down and went to bed. Not far behind, she questioned me about what was wrong. I said I wanted to sleep and she should leave me alone. She persisted till finally I snapped and cried, "Mia, stop. I should be asleep right now. Leave." The attorney emailed me the next morning requesting a later in the day meeting. I confirmed and prepared for my day. Mia had made breakfast and asked to chat when I walked downstairs to head out. I prepared a small plate and settled in. She began by noting that I had been acting differently and then went on and on mentioning my changes and asking why. I informed her that work had been demanding and that it will soon be all done. I told her I had to go after finishing. Counting down the minutes till I could see the lawyer, I headed to my workplace. I informed my assistant I was leaving to lunch with a customer. I left as my wife occasionally would call my work. The legal meeting went smoothly, and I turned over all the material I had collected on her. "Well, I'm sorry for all that's going on," the attorney said. "But I'm glad you acquired all this material. You see, most of your money your wife has no claim on since we live in a no-fault state." I told him I had not given that any attention. I was only thinking I should divorce her right now. He insisted on keeping the proof, but I told him I would rather he simply create duplicates as I hadn't told my wife yet and I wanted to avoid hearing her justification. He agreed and had his assistant copy made. "When would she be served the papers?" I asked. He advised me it would take 2 weeks. I thanked him then and headed off. I headed home to face my wife. She wasn't at home when I got there, so I phoned. None of it. I got back on the line. No response. I texted her, "If you're with Jack right now, I don't give a fuck. Arrive home. We must have a conversation." Not a minute later, she called me, not sure what I was talking about. I told her simply, "Get home now." About 15 minutes later, she showed up. I said to her, "Wow, look at that. 15 minutes? That's around the same distance between here and Jack's, not sure exactly." She turned to face me, stunned. She was just staring at me after I gave her a minute to calm down. "Well?" I asked. "Not much to say here." I let her carry on while she tried to gaslight and deny me. She got herself up and began to disparage me. To silence her, I pounded my hand on the table and drew out the proof. "Look at this mountain of things I've gathered on you," I remarked, showing it to her from the side. I then went through one printout at a time showing her. She told me to stop immediately and started to cry. She told me she loved me and tried to apologize. "Honey, what happened to that energy you had before? Just a minute ago, you were rather determined about denigrating and attacking me." I put my hand out and said, "Don't touch me," as she wanted to hug me and apologize. She suggested we could go to the bedroom and do whatever I wanted. Looking her squarely in the eyes, I said, "Sweetheart, I will never touch you again. Who else has these pictures and messages? You wish to know? My attorney. I am divorcing you. Now get a bag, sort your clothes and leave my house fuck free." That was 3 days ago. I haven't heard from her since. I apologize for the length of this and any spelling mistakes. For people who have been where I am at, what can I expect from here? I appreciate you looking over this. You all gave me a lot of advice after I uploaded the first section of this, so I mostly followed it. I meant to conduct some damage control in my life this morning, hence I made a doctor's appointment to be examined for STDs. 2 days from now is that appointment. I then began calling every person close to me. My father and a few pals. They have all been quite helpful, providing their own guidance and inquiring as to if I require assistance with any one thing. But I turned it down since I had this garbage locked on. I then got on to calling her family. Thanking them for letting me into their family, I emailed her mom and dad saying I was appreciative of all they had done for me. But I told them I will really miss them tremendously since Mia and I are divorcing. Not really. They were somewhat smothering, and even if they are wonderful people, I'm glad I'm free from dealing with it. I next advised them to feel free to ask questions should they have any. After not getting back from them for some time, I turned to Mia's sister. This kind of hurt since I knew it would sour her sister's friendship and we were excellent friends. Saying, "Hey, I'm sorry to have to text you this, but Mia and I are going to get divorced and I wanted you to know. I want to thank you. You embraced me as a brother right from the beginning. I will be here should you ever need anything from me." Her parents answered back at the same moment I sent the SMS. The dialogue proceeded as follows. Parents. We regret learning of this. Whatever happened? Why has Mia not spoken to us? Mia has been in an at least 1 year long affair. I suppose it began before our wedding. She hasn't gotten in touch, and I'm not sure why, but you should phone her. She went from the house. She would have gone to you, I reasoned. Parents. We have not heard from her. We'll give her a call. Thank you for informing us. Are you really positive she was having an affair? I'm upbeat. Parents. We're really sorry she did that. You found their books. We will try and contact her. I took care of her family, then went on to Jack's fiancé. I know it was mentioned in some of the comments. I'm not sure whether I told you all he is engaged in the first section. I assumed this would be challenging, that Mia and Jack would have hatched some grand plans, but either Mia didn't tell them I discovered or they are just morons. About 2 o'clock, I texted her and asked whether we might get together for something like coffee. She accepted around 2:05, and instructed me to meet her at some terrible hipster coffee shop across from her workplace at 2:30. Arriving first, I ordered my awful coffee and waited a few minutes. She arrived and joined me after walking in. Placing her order, I said to her, "I'm simply going to blurt it out. Jack has been cheating on you with my wife. There's no simple way to say what I'm about to tell you. It has been going for almost a year." She seemed clearly startled, so I told her I'd only learned a few days before. I know I ought to have told her then, but I had a divorce to start and my own pity to cope with. She inquired about my source and I responded with everything covered in the first piece. Then I brought out a binder and asked whether she would want to view the material I had collected. She took the binder, quickly went over the photographs and notes, and then began to weep softly. She is more than welcome to grab the binder. Extra copies if she wanted to confront Jack with it or check whether he would lie. She thanked me, got up, picked the binder and let me know whether she needed anything from me. She nodded her head and left, obviously demoralized. I know you all advised me to keep a level head, stay sober and whatnot. Yet my world collapsed on top of me. This week I'm going to sit on my rear porch, drink, smoke cigars and blare music. I'll stop feeling bad about myself after this week and resume my regular calendar. More positively, I have already packed most of her belongings, clothing, jewelry, etc. I also threw every picture with her in our wedding book into the crates. I want her here no more than she needs to be should she return for her items. Besides a few picture frames, nothing is shattered. Before you ask, no, I didn't ruin her clothes. Right now, nothing else is happening. I told everyone I ought to have told. 90% of her stuff is in boxes. My doctor's appointment is set. My lawyer is hard at work trying to get me out of this crap. I truly have no idea what remains. Should she stay out of my life, this may be the simplest divorce ever. I appreciate you looking over this. One values advice constantly. Update 2. Hey everyone. I'm sorry I missed in action for a little and didn't reply to comments and mails, but I believe I caught up now. Regarding the update, I have been enjoying my pity party, drinking, and even more drinking since the previous time. Since I discovered everything and can't really put into words how I feel, this is probably my first semi-sober moment. I suppose numb is a good word. I told everyone all I informed them in the last post. The only one not responding was Mia's sister, from whom I was rather close. After writing the update, that evening I carried on my drinking spree, passed out on my back patio with a bottle and several beer cans all about, and woke up to the fragrance of breakfast cooking. Oh Christ, Mia came back and thinks breakfast is going to make up for what she's done, I first thought. Surprised, let's name Mia's sister Emma, I built myself up into a fury, flung myself from the chair, ready for a yelling match. Emma hurried to me and wrapped her arms around me when I stood there momentarily attempting to cool myself. She realized I was awake. She said nothing. She just took my hand, walked me to the table, and set a plate in front of me. She told me how sorry she was while I ate and that when her sister showed up at her place she simply stated that we were having issues and that everything would be good in a few days. She then informed me that when I texted Mia regarding the divorce, she asked Mia, "If it's fine, why is he divorcing you?" Mia apparently simply broke down and told Emma everything. I laughed and added, "There's no way she told you everything," then went on to relate all that had happened. Emma informed me Mia had indicated it was only one time and I was exaggerating it. Emma was here wasting her time since I told her I had no intention of getting back together with Mia. I also advised her to let Mia know she should get a lawyer if she gets in touch with her. Emma chuckled and remarked she was here for me, not for her sister. She told me she would be there for her sister naturally, but that she and I are friends and she wouldn't forsake me, particularly if I did nothing wrong. I got up, moved to her side of the table and just gave her a hug. Hearing her say that made me feel so much better since I was so concerned that all this crap would sour our friendship. Emma left this morning as I was getting ready to head to my cabin. She remained with me for 2 days in the guest bedroom. I had it before the marriage, thus Mia cannot touch it. She asked if she might join me as I was assembling my hunting and fishing gear, but I told her as much as I would want. She should most likely go check on her sister. She hugged me, agreed, and walked off. Emma is really appreciated for being there for me. Before any of you claim she's into me, she isn't. She is also 20, and for me that is far too young. Simply said, it's a very close friendship. I nearly forgot to mention that I visited a doctor, underwent tests, and should get results on Monday. A couple times I have personally contacted Jack's fiancée to just check on her. She says she's good but she has no idea what to do. I'm more than happy to listen if she wanted to meet any time next week so she could rant. I really appreciate all the appreciation you have given me as well as reading, getting in touch. In my life, you all have been a lighthouse during a somewhat dark period. The only thing I can advise any of you experiencing this is I am to put your head down and concentrate on what you truly want. Whether it's reconciliation or divorce, make one at a time goals. For me, it was lawyer first then doctor, telling all those close. Keep it off of the internet though. Set time also to release your emotions. Thank you once more. Apologies. These updates always seem so long. Update 3. I discussed Emma visiting my place and spending several days in my prior post. She left when I was headed hunting for my cabin. Positively, I scored a buck, a good, big 8-pointer. I'm very glad I acquired him on my first day out as it allowed me the remainder of the time to go fishing. I fixed one dinner and killed the other since I only caught 2 but they were good size. I stayed at the lodge cleaning my deer and savored the natural surroundings throughout. Apart from 2 glasses a day, I traveled sober as promised. My drinking was just for last week. On to the last couple days now. My doctor called and I'm all clear. Though Mia and I haven't had much enthusiasm in a few months, it's not really shocking. All the same, you never know. I contacted Jack's fiancée but didn't hear back for some time. She answered finally, saying she is currently staying with her family. She didn't really go into great depth, but her being with her family, you could only guess as I do, that things are not going so well. At least she's with family, protected, and with all the help she might require. All she needs to do, I reminded her, is reach out, if there is anything I can do. Naturally, I accepted when she invited me to meet and get coffee the next day. We convened at the same horrible hipster coffee shop the following day and spent almost 2 hours chatting. We discussed all that Mia and I had gone through. She wanted to know if I was divorcing, if I would be reconciling, or what steps I was following. In my book, I informed her, that's it after someone cheats. The degree of selfishness and disdain required to cheat, let alone for a year, showcases clearly her lack of concern for me. What was her plan? I questioned her. She confided in me that she is perplexed about everything and that all she believed to be factual turned out to be lies. Whether to go on or to forgive him, she wasn't sure what her next action should be. You're a better person than me if you can forgive someone for cheating on you for that length of time, I advised her. She told me all of her family was advising her to forgive him and then get married. Just because it's what your family wants doesn't mean you need to follow along, I advised her, being direct. Then I said, Jack cheated on you, his fiancée, with my wife. He clearly doesn't give marriage and what it all implies any thought. Should that not convince you he is not marriage material, I am not sure what else does. I advised her to follow her moral compass and not let anyone else except herself make choices impacting her life. When I found out, all I could do was consider how my heart could fool my head into thinking of some way I could accept it and forgive Mia, but I just could not do it. I claimed too that I only spoke with one individual, but that I had already decided and that nobody could change my mind. When you stayed with your family, You had a very decent notion of what you were going to do, but you let too many people in and they all interpreted it any way they wanted. I ended by telling her all she had to do was trust her gut. Her heart and brain will constantly lie to her. If her gut senses something is odd, 9 out of 10 times her gut is most likely accurate. She said thanks, and we headed home separately. My lawyer messaged me the next day saying Mia had been served successfully at her place of employment. I appreciated all of his work, particularly in relation to the timescale he has achieved. Emma called not long after that to inform me Mia has stayed in her room all day and is crying in bed. Mia was served, and she is most likely realizing how terrible she screwed up. Emma wanted to know whether I had anything and how the cabin was. I told her all I did and how my stay went. We spoke for a little then hung up. I then got ready and cleaned my house for her response. Given her recent serving, I reasoned that she will burst shortly, given that she has time. I am thus calmly waiting for it now. I have Advil on hand for what I would guess to be a little headache. When I informed a friend, he nodded. Should Mia show there, he would dash over to act as a witness, should all else fail. I'm writing right now, awaiting Hurricane Mia to rip through my house. Should she or when she does, I will forward another update. I appreciate each of you reading. Update 4. About an hour or so after publishing yesterday, I was waiting for Mia to show up at the house and go ballistic. Though given all that has happened, I never truly knew the woman. I had no real reason to believe she would behave. I checked every camera I had set up, inside and outside, to make sure they were running as they should. Telling my friend that Mia was served today, I told him he should get to my place right away should she show up. Thanks to this woman, I am not going to jail. Turns out I was correct since Mia arrived at the house screaming to allow her in and banged on the door. Mia was pounding on my door, so I called Emma and my friend right away to get here. She was shouting every name in the book, berating my name, imploring me to allow her in and wondering how I could be so callous. She's not incorrect as all I could do throughout the time she was screaming and pounding on the door was giggle. Then I questioned why she didn't just stroll in since, at least from what I knew, she still carried keys. My friend arrived still screaming and cursing, so he started to record on his phone and stayed in his truck. But these morons brought Mia's buddy, his wife, with him. She thus came out and aimed to cool Mia down. She approached Mia, arms around her, attempting to get her to talk, but Mia then slapped her across the face, shouting at her to mind her own business. That led my friend, who now has a video of it, to call the cops. Till the cops arrived, Mia kept screaming and cursing. She put much effort on portraying the victim when they did. She started to weep and tell the 2 cops I hit her and threw her out of the house. Mia was yelling and pounding on the door when my friend and his wife arrived at the house, so they verified that I hadn't followed her advice. Officer was done chatting with my friend and his wife, then he came to my door. Mia remarked, "There, that's him," when I opened it. He struck me. I want him taken into custody. I told the officer I could prove she was lying to him, all I needed, so she started to put me in cuffs. Stopping, the officer instructed me to show him the view captured on the exterior cameras. Having seen the video, he said he was sorry for presuming I was the one in error and for drawing snap judgments. I told him I didn't blame him, but he then informed me my neighbors had called them 15 times overall, and allegedly Mia had yelled out, "He hit me," during her outburst. Thus the cops had rendered their decision already. Mia spent around half an hour dealing with the police before being charged with disturbing the peace, public intoxication, and a DUI and being placed in handcuffs. Emma showed up and came to me inquiring what had occurred as the cops drove her to the car. I played her the entire video on my phone. Then the officer came up to give me some extra documents and the case number. Emma started to probe the charges, so I returned inside. Emma came right behind and sat behind me. She informed me she had left her house for 10 minutes to run to the store, but when she returned Mia was no longer in the living room, so she assumed Mia had gone to bed after too much alcohol. After some time of conversation, Emma requested whether she might spend the night with me. She was always welcome whenever, I said. She informed me Mia had to stay the night in jail. I'm not sure why, but they may get her released early in the morning. Emma doesn't have that type of money, thus she told me when I returned inside she called her parents to let them know what was occurring and to see whether they could bail Mia out. We shared a beer and shortly went to bed. Emma had already left to see her folks when I got up in the morning. Though I haven't heard from Mia, Emma, or their parents, I wouldn't find it to be a lively discussion. Update 5. Since that evening, I haven't heard from Mia, but my lawyer received calls from hers informing him he will be representing Mia. At last we may begin this process. I also asked Jack's fiancée whether she had any updates on her front. We only chatted back and forth, but she informed me she kicked him out of her house and had her father and brother pack everything and drop it at his house. She stated she just wanted to put all this behind her and go on. Her dad and brother wanted to beat him, but she urged them not to. She said her close friends are available for her when she needs them and thanked me for checking on her. I emailed her the link to my Reddit page so she could view all the help you all provide her and to her. Friday, the instant I left the office, I ran home. I had intended to spend the weekend back in my cabin. Emma was in my driveway when I showed up. She had a list of what my wife expected and intended to obtain from her sister. I quickly went over it and all except one object was already in a box or sitting in my garage just waiting to be picked up. I informed her I'm not carrying or touching anything from here. I want to avoid liability should Mia wish to claim I damaged her belongings. Right now I'm heading to my cabin and don't have time to deal with Mia's crap, so I told Emma I would pay for a moving company to come and box all her stuff. That would be fantastic, she added, and hoped I enjoyed myself. She piled a box of Mia's clothes in her car. Then she turned to me and asked whether she may tag along this time. Sure, why not go back home, drop off the box and pack a bag for yourself, I asked. She was dragging up by the time I headed to the shop and loaded the truck. I shut my house and started Emma toward the cabin. The weekend turned out rather perfectly. I understood what a gem that location is when I was last visiting there. It is totally secluded and has a great perspective, thus I am free from dealing with people. Here you may really rest and breathe in. I phoned a moving firm on Monday, and by Tuesday 3 men in a large truck pulled up and began loading. As they closed the box and picked it up, I had every box opened. As the movers loaded all the furniture, I photographed every piece. I tipped each of them an extra $50 and thanked them all for letting me live. I then proceeded on with my day and submitted all the recordings and photos to my lawyer. The house looks empty yet also spotless without all her possessions. My lawyer advised me not to throw away anything that would be deemed shared when I started this process, hence I kept most of the furniture in a storage facility. Since she departed, I have been sleeping in the guest room. So, up until I started writing this piece, I had been shopping for entirely new furniture. Now that I have the garage, I most likely will be storing most of the stuff there. Even if I win the house in the divorce, it has too many negative memories, thus I won by not keeping it. Update 6. My last post was quite some time ago. Between finishing this divorce, handling my soon-to-be ex, and coaching these children, I don't have much free time at the moment. Quite a lot has transpired, hence this may be a long post. Please be patient. A few days after the movers delivered her items to Mia, my attorney received some documentation stating I damaged her items and that I would pay her $1,500 or she would be bringing me before court over it. Asking exactly where the damages she claimed I caused, my lawyer sent hers all the footage and images. All this does is tell the judge how unhinged she is, and it might be a headache now, but when it's time for court, this will all be perfect evidence, he said. Her attorney wasn't prepared for my level of meticulousness or for me photographing and recording everything. I was, for some reason, pulled to this page and read all of the horror stories of the things people's previous husbands did to them when I learned of my wife's affair. I absolutely refuse to be another one of those stories. I wouldn't put anything past her at this point. I have practically every consequence and accusation she could make ready for her. Mia had called once every other day, but I never answered. I merely forward her voicemail to my lawyer. I don't bother listening to it if she left one. Every time I forward my attorney something, he always tells me, "You are a wet dream for a lawyer. You pay attention to everything I say. On your own, you compiled a mountain of proof." I have not yet had a customer that has done so brilliantly. When I mentioned, he says that every time, he wasn't exaggerating, but it makes me smile. Having that confidence from him that I'm doing everything right helps me to feel somewhat better about the whole circumstances. My lawyer informed me roughly 2, maybe 3 weeks ago that we have enough proof to bury her outside of court. Should it fail, it would reflect well on us for efforts. We thus scheduled a meeting in a neutral lawyer's office a week ago. He advised me before we met, don't react to anything Mia might say. No matter what. Should it go before court, everything we do would be noted for a judge to review. Early in the morning we arrived and headed into the workplace. She was already there waiting with her lawyer, shockingly. When we arrived, the lawyers began chatting to one another. Silent sitting there, Mia and I waited for what was to come. Mia's attorney began by inquiring about our offerings. Mine laughed and declared, "With a mountain of proof of the affair and Mia's inappropriate behavior later, the only thing we'll offer is half of the selling price of the house and half of the savings account. That beyond what any court would award. You will be departing with basically what you entered into the marriage with." He then turned straight toward Mia and said, "If you choose to go to court, I will publish every message, making you read it all out loud. I will then post every picture up for all in court for viewing and ask you to meticulously explain what you are doing in each one. Then I'll mention your most recent accusations and show the footage captured that evening." Looking at me, Mia started to cry and asked whether she could do anything to right this. "You have been cheating on me since before our marriage?" I remarked. "I can only show a few weeks before the wedding. I imagine there was far more. Nothing at all could possibly help me to forget or pardon you for what you have done. Sign the paperwork. It's more than you deserve and I want to be done with this whole hoax you produced." She had to excuse herself to the bathroom and shed terrible tears for 15 minutes. She still was in tears when she got back, but she signed the paperwork and left not long after. "Everything will be filed in roughly 1 month, hence all I will have left to do is sell the house. I appreciate everyone reading and all of your wise counsel. Though I could be mistaken, I do not see anything else occurring. Should it, I will let you know. But most likely this will be my last post, hence once again, thank you everybody. I hope what occurred to me benefits at least one person else out there. Parents secretly charged $115K on my credit card for my sister's Europe trip, so I reported it as fraud, leading to major family fallout. Though I never imagined I would be producing an article like this, here I am still in shock and bewilderment over what my parents have done. Alex, 28. Has a younger sister, Emma, 22F, who recently graduated from college. Although our parents have always been, let's say, fascinating in their style of raising their children, this most recent act infuriates me. For background, I have always been the family's responsible one. After working hard in school, I applied for scholarships, and straight out of college earned a decent position in finance. Since I was 22, I have been financially independent. I am glad of what I have done. Emma, on the other hand, has always been the family's young darling. I love my sister, so don't get me wrong. Yet our parents have clearly pampered her. Emma was always obviously the favorite growing up. She was never forced to work a part-time job or help with housework. She acquired the newest appliances and outfits. Focusing on my own objectives and future, I tried not to let it disturb me too much. Nevertheless, occasionally the partiality was difficult to overlook. One specific event came to me when Emma was 10 and I was 16. Months of saving had gone into a new gaming system purchase. Excitedly telling my parents I was heading to the store to buy it, the day I at last had enough money. They answered shockingly, "Oh, we already got one for Emma last week, you are welcome to share hers." Though I was heartbroken, I tried to be happy for my sister and stashed my disappointment. Still, forward swiftly toward the present. Emma recently finished with a degree in communications. She worked hard and deserves to celebrate her accomplishment, hence I am actually proud of her. I also gave her a beautiful graduation present, a new laptop she had been coveting. I heard from my mother last week. She was bursting with enthusiasm, sharing with me Emma's ideal graduation present, a month-long trip throughout Europe. Thinking Emma's gift from our parents was a kind one, I was pleased for her. The shocking revelation then came. "We used your credit card to book it all," my mother remarked dismissively, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "We needed the points from your card to upgrade some of the flights and hotels, thus we will pay you back, naturally." I had no words. What I was hearing defied belief. When I finally recovered my voice, I inquired about their expenditure. The response made me feel as though I had been pummeled in the gut. $155,000. $155,000 on my credit card without authorization or knowledge. Trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom," I continued, "you cannot just use my credit card without asking me. That's illegal. $155,000 is a lot of money." She discounts my worries. "Oh, Alex, be not too theatrical. It relates to the graduation of your sister. Family looks out for one another. Beyond that, we're good for it. Eventually we will pay you back." Finally. Even then, what did that mean? And because $155,000 is just casual about when. My mother wasn't hearing it when I attempted to explain to her why this was such a big deal. The effect on my credit score, the fact that I might need the credit limit for emergencies, the pure betrayal of trust. "You have always been so selfish," she remarked, her voice going icy. "Could you simply be glad for your sister? This is her big moment. Your penny-pinching habits are trying to destroy it." What I was hearing defied belief. For complaining about an illegal $155,000 transaction on my credit card, I was seen as selfish. I hung up the call feeling a mixture of hurt, wrath, and incredulity. I tried to talk to my dad over the next few days, expecting he would be more reasonable, but he confirmed what my mother had said, that I was exaggerating? And I should encourage my sister more. Emma, for her part, appeared completely blind to the circumstances. She simply gushed about how thrilled she was about the trip and thanked me for helping her to graduate. When I tried to discuss it with her, I thought I was insane. Was I indeed the irrational one present? To contest the charges, I decided to phone the credit card company. However, to my astonishment, I found that my parents had booked everything online using my card details, which they had in case of an emergency. The credit card company said that it wasn't deemed fraud as I had provided them with my details. I now have a $115,000 debt, a maxed out credit card, and a family who believes I'm being self-serving for not wanting to pay for my sister's expensive trip. The individuals who are meant to love and encourage me have betrayed me, hurt and angered me. What to do eludes me. Though I know that would cause great family strife, part of me wants to call off the entire vacation. Another side of me wants to simply pay it off to save the drama, but $115,000 is a lot of money and the idea of the thing truly disturbs me. Furthermore, allowing this fall could set a standard for more financial mistreatment going forward. Is my reaction too strong? Should I just swallow it and pay for my sister's vacation, or should I stick to it even if it means maybe souring ties with my family? I could really use some guidance. I feel lost. Update 1. I appreciate all of your advice and encouraging words. The sheer reaction to my post really startled me. Reviewing your responses helped me to see that my anger over this scenario was not insane. I felt violated. Considering your counsel, I decided to proceed. I first escalated the problem by phoning my credit card provider once more. I detailed the circumstances, stressing that although my parents had my card information for an emergency, I had never approved this particular use. Following some back-off, they decided to look at the charges as possible fraud. I then asked for a family Zoom call to go over the matter and texted Emma and my parents groupwise. Before acting more forcefully, I wanted to let them have an opportunity to write this. The call was, at least mildly intense. I began gently outlining why their acts were unacceptable, the legal ramifications, the mistrust, and the financial burden it placed on me. I informed them they had to immediately cancel the vacation since I had reported the charges as fraudulent. The response of my parents did not reflect what I had hoped. They were outraged, accusing me of being dramatic and seeking to spoil Emma's graduation party. My mother went so far as to add, "We raised you, clothed you, and covered your head with a roof. The least you could do is assist your sister in having a lifetime of travel." I inhaled deeply and answered, "You decided to have children. Your obligation as parents was to support us. It does not mean you are free to use credit cards under my identity." Emma, who had been calm up until now, started crying. She wailed, "I can't believe you're trying to ruin my graduation gift. You have always harbors envy of me. Why can't you simply be glad for me once?" Her comments stung, but they also sharpened my will. I knew this pattern of entitlement and favoritism ran deep, and it was time to create some clear limits. "Emma," I continued, trying to keep my voice soft but strong, "I'm glad for you and I'm proud of your graduation. But this vacation was booked illegally with money taken without permission. It's not okay and it's not a gift from me." At last, my normally quiet dad spoke up. "Son, we didn't think it was such a big deal. For crises, we have always had access to your card. As a family, we simply reasoned that this one occasion would be acceptable." What I was hearing defied belief. "Dad, this was not an emergency and $155,000 is not a small sum. You cannot only choose to spend my money without consulting me." Emma was crying, my parents were furious, and I felt exhausted but determined when the call finished. Insisting that I was overreacting and that they would reimburse me shortly, they refused to call off the trip. Following the conference, I moved forward. I told a buddy of mine, a lawyer, the circumstances. He cautioned me that, should I decide to take legal action, what my parents did was in fact illegal and grounds for legal action exist. I also reported the illegal credit card use by going to the police station. The officer I spoke with took down all the specifics and was sympathetic. He advised me that although following charges would probably cause a significant divide in my family, I was quite within my rights to do so. About what to do going forward, I'm still divided. I adore my family, on one hand, yet I get nauseous thinking about suing them. Conversely, their behavior is inappropriate, hence if I do not act strongly right now, this kind of behavior may resurface in the future. I have chosen to wait and see for now what results from the credit card company's inquiry. To stop any more illegal usage of my information, I also froze my credit. This whole scenario has let me know I had to set more rigid rules for my family. Though I've always attempted to be the peacekeeper, that is, to straighten things out and maintain everyone's happiness, I have let myself be repeatedly exploited in doing so. Though I'm hurt and outraged, I also feel an odd sort of empowerment. I'm standing up for myself and saying no, This is unacceptable, for the first time. Though unpleasant and frightening, it also seems vital. Again, thanks all for your support and guidance. Once I have more updates on the credit card inquiry or if anything else comes of course with my family, I will update once more. Update 2. My previous update was several weeks ago and a lot has transpired. I wish to thank them once more for their help and guidance. Your remarks have been a lighthouse through this trying period. First, the good news. My credit card company's inquiry came back positive. They reversed the charges since they agreed they were illegal. Having that $115,000 weight off of my shoulders relieves a great deal. Now let's consider familial fallout. All hell exploded when my parents and Emma discovered the credit card dispute had caused the trip to be cancelled. Furious calls and texts swamped my phone. Saying I had destroyed Emma's life, my mother left an especially angry message labeling me a selfish, unappreciative son. Emma went to social media and shared a moving video about how her spiteful brother had ruined her dream graduation trip. A few of our shared friends and relatives began contacting me to find out why I was treating my younger sister so badly. The matter was spiraling out of control, and I knew I had to straighten the record. I posted a calm, objective piece outlining what had actually happened. How my card had been used without my consent and how I had tried to mend things with my family prior to acting with the credit card company. The reaction to my post was uneven. Some were encouraging, expressing dismay at the behavior of my parents. Others felt I ought to have just taken one for the team and let Emma travel. Finding out how many others felt it acceptable to conduct fraud as long as it was for the family opened eyes. A few days following my post, my mother's sister called me unexpectedly. She offered some family history I hadn't learned before and showed understanding of my circumstances. My mother apparently had a history of financial irresponsibility and has past taken advantage of family members. My aunt gave me her support and urged me to be firm. Talking with my aunt helped me to see that the problem went beyond one occurrence. Years of enabled and excused behavior have set a habit of behavior. I understood then that I had to keep strict limits not only for my own benefit but also to stop the cycle of financial mistreatment. I made the decision to go really big. For the foreseeable future, I informed my parents I would be not interacting with them at all. I said I couldn't trust them right now and I needed time to sort through what had happened. Emma also heard me say that although I loved her and felt good about her accomplishments, I wanted some distance from her too. Their responses were almost always unfavorable. My parents charged me with severing the family. Emma sobbed and stated I was punishing her for something outside her control. Though difficult, I stayed to be sure of my choice. Amid all this family turmoil, I have been especially focused on shielding myself against potential financial mistreatment. I replaced all of my passwords, closed the credit card my parents had access to, and opened a fresh one at another bank. To work through my emotions about the circumstances and create better limits, I have also begun visiting a therapist. One unanticipated benefit of this whole process is that it has brought me closer to a few relatives and my aunt, who contacted me to provide encouragement. Knowing that not every member of my family finds what my parents did acceptable is good. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, I learned via the family grapevine that her parents are still considering sending her someplace. Though I keep reminding myself that it wasn't my obligation to offer that for her, part of me feels bad about her missing the Europe vacation. I still find myself battling doubt and remorse. Sometimes I worry whether I did the right thing or too hard, but then I remember the violation I felt when I found out what they had done and I know I made the correct decision in speaking out for myself. Though it's a painful wake-up call, this event has also been a valuable lesson in self-respect and establishing limitations. I'm finding that love shouldn't have a price tag and that saying no, even to family, is okay. Again, I appreciate your support. For now, I'm concentrating on mending and moving forward. I will post should there be any noteworthy changes. Update 3. My last update was almost 2 months ago, hence I wanted to let you all know some advancements. Over this trying period, your ongoing support and guidance has been priceless. Let us start with the most urgent matter, the legal one. Following much thought and legal advice, I opted against charging my parents. This wasn't a simple choice, and I know many of you suggested I file a lawsuit. My attorney noted though, that since the credit card company had reversed the charges, going for a criminal prosecution would be difficult and maybe expensive without any assurance of victory. Rather, we have formally written my parents a cease and desist letter telling them that any future use of my financial data will cause instant legal action. Now, on the family matter. The no-contact period with Emma and my parents has been instructive and difficult at once. It allows me time to consider our family dynamics and concentrate on myself. Having regularly attended therapy, which has been quite beneficial in helping me to process my emotions and create better limits, about 1 month into the no-contact period, Emma sent me an uninvited email. Unlike her earlier crying claims, this email was refreshingly adult. She said she had given it much thought and came to see how mistaken our parents' behavior was. She felt bad about her first response and about not defending me. Emma said she had always known about the favoritism but had been too comfortable and afraid to question it. Though I was cautiously hopeful by Emma's email, I decided to go gently. Since then, we have had a few phone calls. From what I can see, she is actually attempting to grasp my viewpoint. She had earlier kept to herself some of her own experiences with our parents' financial carelessness. The aborted Europe trip seemed to be a wake-up call for her as well. Regarding my parents, they have been less ready to take accountability. From guilt-tripping emails to enraged voicemails, they have tried multiple times to reach me. One day, my mother even showed up at my apartment without warning, creating quite a disturbance in the corridor. Though it was tough, I stayed my ground and avoided interacting. The extended family dynamics have been conflicted. Some families have been encouraging, especially my aunt who first got in touch. She is now a great friend and ally. Others, using the "but their family" justification, nevertheless encourage me to reconcile with my parents. For my own mental peace, I have had to cut ties to some of these cousins. Positively, nonetheless, this circumstances has resulted in some unanticipated personal development. Spending the time and effort I used to manage the drama in my family has helped me to concentrate more on my own life and aspirations. I have started a new pastime, photography, and have been spending more time with pals that honor my limits. I have also made some really important financial choices. I started establishing a stronger emergency fund and have been more generous to my retirement funds. The value of financial freedom and stability has been really emphasized by this whole experience. Last week brought one especially fulfilling event. At work, I got a promotion accompanied by a significant wage raise. I might have felt obliged in the past to tell my family this news and the money gained. This time I celebrated privately with a small group of close friends, glad of my achievements free from guilt or obligation to share. Regarding Emma's graduation vacation, my aunt told me our parents ultimately sent her on a 2-week California tour. Emma apparently had fun with it. Looking ahead, I'm somewhat hopeful but yet wary. I have chosen to keep my parents under no contact for at least 3 more months. I need more time to recover and evaluate whether they can honor my limits. Emma allows me to gently restore our friendship, but I'm moving carefully and keeping clear limits. This encounter has really helped me to learn about the real meaning of family, standing up for myself, and establishing limits. Family, I've come to see, is about love, respect, and support as much as blood ties. The friends and relatives who have supported me during this struggle have shown me what actual family entails. About financial freedom, I have also gained a useful insight. Although I have always been frugal with money, this scenario has made me especially more alert. On all of my accounts, I have added extra security measures. I have also become more aggressive in safeguarding my financial data, even from relatives. Particularly during family gatherings I missed because of the no-contact policy, there have been times of uncertainty and grief. Mother's Day proved especially challenging, but I remind myself that my mental health and personal development depend on this distance. One unanticipated result of this is that I have started to be really helpful to friends handling personal family financial problems. Many people have come to me seeking guidance on establishing limits and handling financially reckless family members. Being able to guide others through the same circumstances makes one feel wonderful. Regarding my parents' financial circumstances, my aunt has told me they are having trouble. Apparently, they had been depending on my credit for purposes beyond Emma's vacation. This has caused some conflict between them since my dad holds my mom responsible for pushing too far with the credit card theft. Though part of me feels bad knowing they are facing money problems, I tell myself that their bad financial choices are not my duty to correct. Emma has offered some observations on how our parents responded to all of this. She adds they still don't really know why I responded so passionately. They can't understand why I'm making such a big deal out of it. They view their activities as natural family behavior. This ignorance irritates me, but it also helps me to realize that I made the correct choice in separating myself. After much thought on my early years and early adulthood, I came to see trends of financial and emotional control I had accepted. Though it's been a difficult journey, it also releases something. I'm learning to validate my own emotions and experiences apart from parental approval. Regarding my personal life, I have lately started dating once more. Dealing with all this familial drama, I had been reluctant to interact with anyone. But lately I came across someone who has been rather sympathetic about my circumstances. Though early days, it feels fantastic to be developing a relationship with someone who upholds my values and limits. I'm also thinking about drastically altering my life. Though I have always wanted a master's degree, I put it off somewhat because of worries about how it would affect my capacity to support my family financially. I'm now really researching programs and thinking about diving in. Making decisions grounded just on what's best for my future and me feels empowering. I find as I draft this update how much has changed in a few months. The first shock and resentment had subsided to be replaced by a cool determination. I'm actively building the life I want for myself, not only responding to the behavior of my family. To those of you perhaps handling such familial problems, I want to say it gets better. Although setting limits is difficult and there can be reactions, keep firm. Your rights include those to guard your mental health, money, and personal belongings. Again, I appreciate all of your support on this trip. Your guidance and support have been a lifesaver. Though I'm not sure what the future holds for my connection with my sister and parents, I know I will be fine whatever comes of it. Right now I'm stronger, more certain of myself, and ready to meet whatever lies ahead. If there are any major changes, I will notify once more. For now, I am focused on forward-looking and creating the life I want surrounded by supportive people. Here's wisdom earned and fresh starts. Update 4. My last update was 6 months ago, and I felt it was time to let all of you, who have been so encouraging over this path, know the most recent developments. First, the most news. I have been accepted into a master's program in a city 3 hours from where I presently live. This 2-year financial technology program fits very nicely with my professional objectives. Starting this fall, I am equal in excitement and anxiety about this new phase of my life. Choosing to work for this degree was not simple. It involves quitting my career, relocating to a new place and starting some student debt, but it also means making investments in my future, in the manner I have always wanted. I came to see that I had been holding back, constantly weighing how my choices might affect my family. It seems quite freeing to now be choosing based on what would be best for me. Regarding my family, things have changed in ways I never would have predicted. 2 months ago, the no-contact period with my parents formally came to an end. I agreed to a family therapy session run under the direction of a professional therapist. It was quite strong. Defensively still believing they had done nothing wrong, my parents arrived, but as the session went on, some shockingly real facts emerged. My dad had hidden from everyone, including my mom, a large loss of money from a poor investment. For months they had been covertly struggling financially, and they looked to my credit card to keep appearances. Many tears and accusations followed from this insight. My dad felt guilty of his bad financial choices, my mom felt deceived by his silence, and both of them at once seemed to realize the weight of what they had done to me. Although this justification does not absolve their behavior, it did enable me to see the desperation driving their bad decisions. The therapist guided us through some of these problems, and for the first time both of my parents sincerely apologized. Monthly family therapy sessions are going to continue under our agreement. Though I'm still keeping strict limits and it's a gradual process, I feel cautiously hopeful about reconstructing our connection on better terms. Emma has kept developing and maturing. She moved into her own apartment and started working full-time in order to reach financial independence. Our conversations have become more frequent, and I feel as though I am first starting to know my sister as an adult. She has even sought guidance on saving and budgeting, which is a major advancement in our relationship. Personal-wise, the relationship I highlighted in my last update has evolved into something unique. Though it means we will be doing long distance for a period, Sarah has been quite encouraging of my choice to return to school. Her own experiences with establishing limits with family have made her a great source of insight and encouragement. Financially, I am in good shape. Thanks to the encouragement I got, I was able to somewhat offset the expenses of graduate school and save a sizable sum for my move. I have also started to defend my financial data far more aggressively. I recently had to turn down an attempt by a distant relative to guilt me into co-signing a loan. Though it wasn't easy, I stood my ground and felt good about imposing limits. I've been thinking about how much has changed since that first startling phone call from my mother concerning the credit card charges as I get ready for this next phase of my life. The hurt and resentment I had then have mostly disappeared. Instead, I now feel empowerment and self-assurance I never realized I had. This process has taught me so much. Even, and especially, with family, I now see the value of establishing and upholding limits. True family, whether related by blood or by choice, promotes your development and respects your boundaries. I have come to see that it is okay to give my own well-being and future top priority. Thank you to everyone who has tracked my narrative and provided encouragement and guidance along the road. During some quite trying circumstances, your words have been a lighthouse of strength and clarity. To anyone who might be experiencing similar family conflicts, know that it is possible to emerge on the other side wiser and stronger. I am excited and full of possibilities as I pack my flat and get ready for this new journey, Not something I have felt in years. I'm glad of how far I have gone, and I am excited about what the future presents. I'll be busy with my move and starting school, hence I might not update again for some time. Nonetheless, I will always be appreciative of the help I have gotten here. Here are fresh starts, acquired knowledge, and the bravery to design the life we wish for personally. My wife cheated with my stepbrother, got pregnant, and I told her parents. Now she's cut off from her inheritance. I, 34M, and my wife, 29F, have been married for 2 years. Our relationship has been rather ordinary. We met at a work event many years ago, became friends for a few years, then realized we had feelings for one another and began dating. We dated for 3 years before I asked her to marry me, so we've been together for about 6 years. We never had any issues, either while courting or after we married. She is gorgeous, intelligent, and a wonderful partner for me. I have done my best to be a good husband to her, and we are happy together. Around 6 months ago, my stepbrother Darren, 28M, was sacked from his work. Instead of looking for another career, he opted to spend some time traveling and finding himself. Darren has always been unpredictable and spontaneous. My parents had a difficult time convincing him to go to college and earn a degree. He is constantly full of wacky ideas that he needs to be talked out of, but being dismissed from his job because he was intoxicated during a business meeting is serious. Despite his history, he resolved to quit drinking. Despite my fears that he would abandon this project halfway through, I attempted to be supportive for my father's sake. My parents divorced while I was a child, and my father married Darren's mother when I was a teenager. So when Darren asked if he could stay at my house for a few weeks to tour New York, I wasn't sure how to say no. I was suspicious and unwilling to do it, but when my father and stepmother urged me to let him stay, I couldn't say no. I questioned my wife and she said she was fine with it, so I grudgingly gave in. Darren came to live with us 2 months ago. I made it clear that he could not bring anyone into the flat, and that even if he could leave and return any time he pleased, it should not disrupt our sleep. Surprisingly, he agreed with all of my rules. For the first few days, he stayed out virtually all night, and I even saw him arrive as late as 7 a.m., when I was already up and preparing for work. Aside from that, he was fairly polite, having supper with me and my wife at our home and even cooking for us on a few occasions. I was pleasantly surprised. This was not the Darren I'd known my entire life. My wife and I had scheduled a weekend trip to Vegas the second weekend Darren was staying with us because I had worked there. We told Darren to take care of the place until we returned. Everything was planned, but my wife developed a severe stomach flu at the last minute. It was Thursday night and we were meant to leave the next morning. We were both really unhappy, but we assumed she would go if she felt better. Unfortunately, her illness worsened the next morning, and by the time we were scheduled to depart, she was too ill to travel. I tried to reschedule my job commitment and postpone our trip, but it was too late, and I needed to travel. I felt terrible about leaving her in that state, but I knew Darren would be there in case her health worsened. He offered to stay at home and cook her meals as well. I vowed to return as early as possible on Saturday morning and then left. Looking back, I can't believe I didn't see that coming. So I went to Vegas by myself, returned the next day, and found that my wife was doing better. I didn't think much of it at the time, but after that weekend, I noticed Darren was home more frequently than usual. Previously he went out every day, but now he hasn't left the flat in several days. I asked whether everything was fine, and he just shrugged, claiming he was trying to save his money. I didn't think much of it at first, but as time passed, I began to notice more things that stood out. When I returned from work one day, I discovered that my wife had already arrived home. Apparently, she had taken a half day off due to a headache and forgot to notify me. Another day, I arrived home early and noticed Darren and my wife entering the house together. They stated that they had just met outside the building. This could just be a coincidence, but I had a horrible feeling about it. I had never questioned my wife's devotion before, and while Darren was a messy person, I didn't think he could do something so heinous as that. Still, I couldn't ignore the impression that something was off. I knew I couldn't accuse them of anything without evidence, and doing so would cause upheaval in my family, which I wasn't prepared to cope with. So I took a straightforward approach. I asked Darren how long he planned on staying with us. I reminded him that while it was fantastic to have him around, he should think about his future moves. Thankfully, he caught the message and stated he'd be leaving within a week. My wife was in the room during the chat, but she said nothing, which made me uneasy. Darren moved out, and I attempted to ignore my misgivings, concentrating on my marriage rather than worrying about the worst-case situation. Things improved after he departed, and I began to believe I had been overly paranoid. I was mortified to think that my wife would do something like that, especially because she had been the perfect spouse all these years. However, around 2 weeks ago, something happened. We discovered that my wife was pregnant, 2 months to be exact. You probably know where this is headed. When Darren moved in with us 2 months ago, I felt sick to my stomach. I'll offer you some context. I am a few years older than my wife, as I previously stated. By the time I was 30, I was ready to settle down and establish my own family. When my wife and I first started dating, I knew she was the one for me and wanted to marry her. However, she believed she was too young to have children and wanted to wait a few years before making that decision. Though it wasn't what I desired, I approved of her choice. We always took precautions since we decided to wait until she was 30 to start looking for children. My wife always insisted we be very careful since her body reacts poorly to hormonal birth control and she is not on any tablets. I also always utilized protection. Accidents do happen, of course, but I could not get over the sense that something was off. I felt the timing to be unsettling. She said she wanted to keep the baby, that although this was unplanned, it was a good thing and we ought to be glad. Long since I had desired children, under different conditions I would have been ecstatic, but instead I was in excruciating pain. Though I attempted to seem content to my wife, I don't think I have ever felt worse. Uncertain of what to do, I wanted no one to criticize me, thus I couldn't talk to any of my friends about it. Nevertheless, I couldn't get rid of the bad ideas and emotions. I knew I couldn't continue living in total anguish after about 1 week. I had to face my bride. I knew this would have a terrible effect on our marriage and should I turn out to be mistaken, she might never pardon me. But I kept thinking of the worst. The prospect of her carrying the baby of my stepbrother made me sick. After our first visit, completed several blood tests and procedures, all I could feel was total devastation. I decided to talk to her as I could no longer handle it and got ready for the worst. I told her I had to talk to her about something quite crucial about a week ago during supper. She wanted to know straight away. Though afraid, I aimed to be as direct as I could. I apologized for feeling this way, but I questioned her whether she actually carried my child. My question seemed to her startled. Her whole face flushed red, and she began shouting, accusing me of being a monster for questioning her and committing something so terrible. She said she had never strayed from me. She wondered where all this was coming from, and I told her it was too much of a coincidence she was 2 months pregnant, the same length of time Darren had left. She became much more irate as a result and began yelling even more. Seeing the situation becoming bad, I tried to cool her down and get her to pay attention to me. I told her it hurt for me to live with these uncertainties. I told her about the events that occurred during Darren's stay, wishing I had no harbors of uncertainty and felt something was off. She seemed to relax a little and assured me she knew I had questions, but she also advised me to believe her and our marriage would be stronger. Though I felt awful, I told her I wished I could just ignore these ideas. Having attempted, I wanted a paternity test following the birth if there was really nothing to worry about. I even said I knew how tough this must be for her, but I had to be sure for my own peace of mind. She seemed to be really more extreme than I had expected, so clearly I didn't expect her to be entirely cool with this and felt she might flare out a little. If she was angry before, the reference to a paternity test sent her off. She said I was nasty and she couldn't believe I would force her to go through something so embarrassing over my crazy thoughts. Though I attempted to remain cool, really seeing her so against the concept made me feel as though my suspicions were vindicated and I started to get enraged. I told her this was an ultimatum, that if she disagreed, I doubted we could be together. She admitted she needed time to consider it and this seemed to help her somewhat relax. That evening we slept in different rooms. We said nothing to one another the next morning before reporting to work. I fantasized the worst-case scenario as the truth all day. The remainder of the week reflected that. She would ignore me and arrive home late at night. She grew upset every time I tried to chat to her, so I finally gave up. I had no notion she was merely deciding on her next action. When I got up in the morning last Thursday, I discovered she had not returned home the evening before. She never responded when I texted her many times. I had to report to work, but I was so agitated that I couldn't concentrate and so left early for home. I waited hours for her, but I grew rather concerned when she still hadn't returned home by 9 p.m. and would not answer my calls. Not sure what else to do, I asked her assistant at work about her. My surprise was that she hadn't been to work and had taken 2 personal days. Her assistant expressed amazement at my ignorance of this. I was somewhat concerned at that point and phoned some of her friends to see whether she was with any of them. I started picturing the worst when all of them claimed they hadn't heard from her. I fretted about her leaving me or about something happening to her. I asked my mother-in-law, Mil, a last resort, whether she was with her. She wasn't, but upon learning my wife had vanished for 2 days, my Mil started to get really concerned. She promised to try to get to her and let me know whether there was any update. Should she still be inaccessible, we agreed to phone 911. I was completely terrified in the next half hour, but suddenly my wife called. She stated she was absolutely fine, wanted some time to sort things out, and that I had no need to stress her out for no cause or involve her mother. She sounded even angry, very apathetic. I became enraged when she showed no regard for freaking me out, but I calmed down and asked her where she was and when she was returning. She hung up, then declared she would be returning early the next morning. Frayed and somewhat angry, I went to bed. I considered spending some time apart from her. I had no idea what lay ahead of me. The next morning she woke me up and seemed especially content. She stated she was fixing a problem, when I asked her where she had been the day before. Trust me when I say I spent weeks considering every conceivable scenario that might go wrong. What she said next was crazier than anything I could have imagined. She explained that this pregnancy was killing our marriage and causing foolish questions in my head, hence she decided to rescue our marriage by means of an abortion. She met my eyes squarely and stated, now I had no reason to question her loyalty, we could start our marriage anew. I looked astounded. I had never used that word and really meant it before in my life. I simply asked her if she was kidding after just staring at her. She stated she was totally serious and hoped I could unwind now and stop allowing stupid worries to disturb me anymore. That served as my breaking point. After several more minutes of staring at her, I stood up and departed. Spending another second with her worried me that I would have some kind of mental collapse. She started to follow me, but if she wanted peace, I advised her to avoid me. I guess my tone was severe enough to stop her. I phoned my attorney on the way out of the building to let her know I was divorcing my wife and needed to start the process immediately. I also scheduled a meeting for the following morning and advised her we had to make sure my wife missed a penny of my money. Though I had no idea exactly how things would turn out, I knew what I had to do. I asked Darren where he was when I phoned. He claimed to be in Atlanta, someplace. I asked him not to waste my time. Simply admit that they had slept together. I was divorcing my wife. He said nothing for a few minutes, then simply apologized to me. That helped me too. I understood there was nothing else to say. For the evening I checked into a hotel and got ready for what I knew was in store. I woke up the next morning, headed straight to my attorney, and gave her all the specifics, the infidelity, the abortion, everything. She claimed that we did have a shot, even though it's tough to have a clean divorce with no alimony unless both sides come to a mutual understanding, as my wife has a high-paying job of her own and is most certainly the one at fault here. Really, I was more concerned with the cause than with the money. With this woman I was finished. She could be very frigid, which astounded me. It seemed like I had lived all these years among strangers. The person I loved and married would not be able to do anything this crazy. She had slept with my stepbrother, but there was still a possibility she was pregnant with my baby. Now we would never know. Changing my plans to suit her wants, and doing everything I could to be a decent husband, after almost 6 years in this marriage, this is what I received. Inquiring whether she was at work, I phoned her assistant. She became. I urged her not to tell my wife I phoned and lied about arranging a surprise for her. I then headed home, loaded as many of her items as I could into 3 suitcases, and arranged them in the hall. Changing our locks and phoning a locksmith came next. I wanted no sight of her. I wanted her out of my house, gone. Not wanting to be home when she got back, I then stuffed some of my own items in an overnight bag and headed back to my hotel. It was almost 5 p.m. by the time everything was finished, and I was worn out, physical and psychological. I slept on the bed and nodded out as soon as I got to my motel. My phone rang when I woke up. In fact, it was my wife, but I chose to treat her with the same indifference that she had shown me the day she obtained the abortion behind my back. She persisted in phoning, and I ignored a million books that she recommended. Regarding all that, I had nothing to say to her. She stopped at last after over an hour of unrelenting calls. She had apparently given up, but then I received a text from Darren stating she had contacted him and inquired as to whether I had spoken with him. It was finished, he informed her. I knew everything. Again over text, he apologized. I couldn't care less. Not texting him either, I started considering what to do next. The following phase was where I might have gone a little too far, but I was devastated and embarrassed. What else to do eluded me. One thing you should know about my wife is that she is from a quite traditional Southern background. They do things a particular way over there, and since we were married, she has been under pressure to have children. I had been on her side at every family gathering for years, helping to back our slow approach. I never once said that her desire to wait was the sole reason we weren't trying for children. I knew that her family would not be very happy if they discovered she had an abortion and cheated. I thus decided to phone my mother-in-law and simply be petty once in a lifetime. I gently went over everything with her and advised her that I was divorcing her daughter for betraying my confidence. She first doubted me and sounded embarrassed. About the abortion, I could show her the positive pregnancy test and the doctor's notes from our first appointment. Darren had previously acknowledged the affair. She may have her daughter clarify the rest. My wife was blowing up my phone in no time, exactly as I had anticipated. I tried to wait it out, but I ultimately picked up when she wouldn't stop after an hour and a half of unrelenting calling. Her answer was as predicted. She screamed I was ruining her life for no reason and she had nowhere to stay for the evening. She was beyond enraged. I informed her she was welcome to check into any hotel of her choice, but not to irritate me. I disregarded her attempts to prod me. She would be hearing from my lawyer shortly, and any correspondence from now on would go via our lawyers, I advised her. I also assured her that I would pack and deliver everything she desired wherever. She then told me she could forget about ever inheriting a cent from her parents since her parents were quite enraged with her and declared she was no longer welcome in their family. From my in-laws, this was surprising. Although I expected them to be enraged, I did not believe they would act in this extreme manner. I obviously told my wife none of this. Rather, I advised her she should have considered this before turning around behind my back and that none of my concern was what her parents chose to do. Saying I shouldn't have dragged her parents into our marital troubles since now her life was shattered and she had nobody left, she labeled me immature and petty. I hung up on her and replied I couldn't care less. She then started texting me endlessly, calling every name under the sun, threatening to steal every dollar I had and cause me to repent everything. My father-in-law called me as well. He apologized to me for what his daughter had done. He was embarrassed of her. Hoping this would teach her a lesson, he informed me they were done letting her get away with anything. I was more than glad to provide him with the doctor's reports he requested. That was a couple hours ago, and my wife keeps contacting me. I'm thinking about just blocking her. But somewhere in the back of my mind there is a niggling voice reminding me I might have gone too far and ought to have kept this between the two of us. Although I absolutely have second thoughts about the divorce and I don't regret shutting her out of my apartment. I realize what a major blow it is to her to be cut off from her parents. Am I the asshole for telling my in-laws about my wife's adultery and abortion? Update 1. I want to thank everyone who helped me. Those of you who shared your own tales made me feel far less alone than I was feeling and also helped me relax about my response. Working through the divorce has not been simple. She is determined about receiving alimony and won't help me. We all know how complicated divorces can go, thus we have been trying to come to an understanding between us and avoid going to court. Unfortunately, it looks like she is handling this as an assault against her ego and does not give practicalities any thought. I am quite happy I had the wisdom to evict her from the apartment before she could get the pregnancy test and ultrasonic records, which I currently have with me. I have also discussed the overall matter with Darren. Though I am furious with him, he claims he will help and even testify if he has to. He has also blocked my wife on all conceivable platforms and avoided all interaction with her. He has apologized for what he did, not that his apology counts to me, but at least he isn't repeating her error as she did. Curiosity drove me to ask him specifics about the affair. He claimed it began the weekend I visited Paris and persisted for as long as he remained here. Reportedly, they also met a few times after he moved out. Regarding her pregnancy or abortion, he claimed he knew nothing. Though I am furious with him, I do need him to respond appropriately should things get that far off. Knowing that he depends on my dad financially, his funds have gone out, I also realize the only reason he is suddenly so thoughtful of my needs is clearly, my dad will be cut off completely should he exacerbate the problem in any form. According to my dad, Darren's lack of immediate cutoff is just a result of our maybe need for him should the divorce get messy. It hasn't been easy. I'm trying as hard as I can not let me snap at him. Apart from that I have moved into my apartment, otherwise, there is not any more positive news as yet. I cannot pretend to be sympathetic. I know exactly where she is. I am not likely to lose this flat as I have owned it for considerably longer than my marriage has lasted. For now just that is all. I am preparing for the divorce to get more ugly. I have no other option. Once things calm down enough, I'll attempt to let you know people. Update 2. I am formally divorcing you people. My last update was 6 months ago, hence I have been really busy. Things have advanced with the divorce since then. Originally challenging, my wife changed her behavior following multiple pre-trial hearings, depositions and settlement negotiations. It became evident that if we let this go to trial, it would only end badly for her. Darren answered under oath. Already, we had proof of her pregnancy. For her statement, we called in our OB/GYN, she supported us on everything. Especially exposing were the depositions. My wife had to respond to some difficult questions under oath, and her behavior, along with tail contradictions, only worked against her. Darren's deposition validated our suspicions. Although his apologies meant nothing to me, it was an important piece of proof. On his phone they also foolishly snapped some images in private situations during the encounter. She could not later on ignore the reality. We traveled to settlement conferences following the depositions. These were uncomfortable, but given her high-paying work and the strong proof of her infidelity, my wife's lawyers seemed to understand that pursuing alimony wouldn't be successful. Her request for alimony clearly wouldn't stand up in court. While we were ready to resolve things amicably, I wasn't going to be taken advantage of. My wife gave up at last. She committed herself to not claiming any alimony. Given her efforts during our marriage, the settlement also guaranteed that she would not get any more than what we decided upon. This was fair. I'm happy the last decision was taken without calling for a pointless trial that would have simply sapped my funds and time. She will have her own stuff. We have fairly split our shared assets. The settlement guarantees our ability to go on free from more entanglement. Though I am glad everything is over now, I cannot help but feel as though all of this has been a great waste of my time. Not only the divorce, but the entire marriage. I find it hard to believe I squandered time and effort and strayed from my intentions to start a family for someone who would not hesitate to toss it all aside for basically nothing. I appreciate your support and counsel all around. It has been really helpful at this difficult period. If someone else is experiencing something like this, keep strong and rely on your support system. Things will improve. Update 3. Although I'm not sure whether anyone is still interested, I wrote in this subreddit at the start of the year and it has been a few months since my last update. I heard from my dad a few hours ago. Not expecting much, I picked up and was genuinely perplexed about how to respond when he told me. Darren and my ex-wife apparently are seeing one other once more. I hadn't heard from any of them and didn't realize Darren came to the city after finding employment here. I suppose it was sufficient to reignite their love and she apparently forgot all the slights she had aimed at him during the divorce. I get turned off. I feel duped and that someone made a fool of me. According to my dad, he has made it abundantly evident to Darren and my stepmother that he wants nothing to do with him going forward. At least, having my old dad by my side feels great. Still, that is that. I don't think I will have any more updates for you folks as I hope I won't hear anything about this anymore. My fiance's quirky food choices are ruining our meals. Now she's disappeared after a fight. Am I the asshole for reaching my limit? Original post. Maybe I'm making too much out of this. Maybe it is a big problem and why I'm posting here. This has been going on since we've dated in college. I'll use last night as an example. I'm always a safe order guy, meaning I get chicken tenders, steak, a burger, orange chicken, etc. It's not that I dislike other food, it's that if I'm doing something crazy I want to buy it, prepare it, cook and serve it, be in control of the whole process. She always orders the special, the catch of the day, the taster's menu, etc. And she invariably says, I don't really like this, I should have just ordered what you got, let's switch. And she grabs my plate. Sometimes I'm able to eat her food, sometimes it really is bad and then I go hungry. I've brought this up with her and she has upfront told me she thinks it makes her quirky and fun, and I've known this since dating her. Last night we went to a sports bar after our league beach volleyball game and we're starving. I just wanted food so I ordered chicken tenders and fries. This dingy sports bar was having a snow crab special, which of course she wanted. I begged her to please just order something they couldn't mess up and she accused me of being so boring. Food came, her crab legs looked, smelled and tasted like they were rotting wax and of course she didn't want it and wanted my tenders. I finally stood up for myself and said no, she could send them back and order her own food. Cue massive fight. She accused me of wasting food, of not cooperating with her and not reading the room, whatever they meant. I told her that no, I was not doing it this time. She started crying and demanded to go home. I said no, I was so hungry I was eating my food. I think she got an Uber to a friend's house and I have not seen her since. I'm fed up. Is this breakup worthy and what should I do about this? Edit. We are engaged and live together. We also share credit cards and bank accounts. Top comments. Comment 1. She sounds insanely entitled and the mentality and temper of a 4-year-old. Why would anyone want to date someone like that? Comment 2. Because she's quirky and fun per as seriously though, she needs to act like an adult. Comment 3. I'm very Joey doesn't share food and if someone pulled this shit with me and expected me to let it slide because they thought it made them quirky and fun, I'd be gone. She sounds annoying AF, extremely entitled and also very slightly psychotic for expecting OP to go hungry. All because she's playing the part of a quirky, fun and adventurous foodie. I expect this has more to do with her testing his limits than just food, as evidenced by her blowing up when he suggested, quite logically, she order something else. It's like she wants him to suffer to prove how endearing he finds her. OOP. To be fair to her, I don't think she expects me to go hungry. In fact, I'll bet she's never noticed if I finish her meal or not. Comment 4. That's telling if she doesn't even notice. Makes you wonder what else she isn't noticing about you in the relationship. OOP. I don't want to sound like a crybaby because I have made a choice with her, but yes, I do more of the labor in the relationship. Comment 5. It's only quirky and fun if she eats what she fucking orders. I realize you already know this, but why in the hell should you have to give up your food because of her bad gamble? At the core of it, it sure seems like a, let's see how much of my bullshit he will indulge test. I would say no more would be the correct answer. You haven't seen her since. I suspect she'll be back in touch, and you can give her an opportunity to apologize, but that shit is unacceptable. She owes you an apology, and I sort of doubt you're going to get one. OOP. Your second paragraph was what I've felt for a long time put into words. Thank you. Comment 6. If she's the one labeling it quirky and fun, it isn't. I want to try something, but she needs to order her own food. Who pays the tab? OOP. I mean, technically we both do since we have shared credit cards and bank accounts. Update. Rared it? I don't remember the exact timeline of how things went down on Sunday as far me posting, but original was locked when she texted me at 6 p.m. telling me that I owed her a huge apology for the way I behaved at the sports bar and the volleyball game. I still don't know what that is about. I asked her where she was. She said she would tell me when I apologized. I said I was not going to apologize. She said she needed some time to think whether this relationship was right for her. I told her that I was just exhausted by so much of what she does that I couldn't do it anymore. She hung up and I haven't heard from her since. She hasn't even been by to pick up a change of clothes, so I don't know where she is. I canceled all my credit cards we shared and opened a new bank account and took half out of our share, but she hasn't taken any money out or used her debit card, so I guess I'm a little concerned since for all effect purposes she's disappeared. I'm not too worried now, but if I haven't heard anything by Friday I'll call her parents. I kind of think she's doing this disappearing act for attention. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Wait. So to sum this up, she ignored your reasonable request to order food she knows she'll like, publicly threw a fit when you wouldn't give up your own meal despite being warned that's what would happen, yelled, stormed out, and has been MIA for days. Over a meal? That she could have easily sent back herself. Holy drama, bruh. Like, wow. Bullet dodged, huh? Can you imagine a whole lifetime of ridiculous public tantrums over easily resolvable stuff? Yikes. OP. Well, the meal and whatever it is I did to make her mad at the volleyball game. Comment 2. Text her to pick up her things by X date or you will have it sent to her parents. I think she is doing this for attention, and all the more reason you were right to dump her. Tell her parents you broke up and she has not been in contact. Tell them that she did not tell you where she was, but could they check on her? Don't wait on that. The sooner you do this, the sooner you can get her out of your life. OP. Okay, I can do this. Probably a good idea. OOP made a final edit. Edit. I called her parents, they haven't heard from her either, and me calling them now has them worried because they thought she was with me. I'm going to drive her important things over to their house and wash my hands of her. Whatever happens to her is of her own making at this point. My brother had an affair with my fiancée, got her pregnant before my wedding, and my parents supported him over me. This will be a lengthy one, and it's as disorganized as it sounds. Though there is much to explore here, I will attempt to keep it as succinct as feasible. Whether someone believes this or not doesn't matter. It's just so ridiculous that I have to voice this. I won't sugarcoat anything either, but I will steer clear of any information that would allow someone unfamiliar with the circumstances to identify myself. Up until a few months ago, I was engaged to my 5-year girlfriend. We will call her Sarah. 32-year-old guy. Let's call my younger brother Mike. He is 29 and has always been the perfect child in our family. I have to provide some background on my family and how we came to this place if I truly want to grasp the depth of this betrayal and why it struck me so deeply. Mike could not do anything wrong in our parents' view growing up, whereas I was continuously chastised for the most minor transgressions. This was clear and severe, not simply ordinary sibling rivalry or minor partiality. Mike broke something, and I would be accused. I would be the one grounded while he started a fight. He would get a new video game console if we both received straight A's. I would get a pat on the back and be advised to keep it up. Our parents, Tom and Linda, always found a justification for their actions. Mike's younger brother requires more attention. Given you are the older one, you ought to know better. We have to be careful with Mike. he is just more sensitive. I felt unworthy and unwanted in my own house from the never-ending assault of double standards and gaslighting. The preference just grew as we aged. When I enrolled on a partial scholarship in a decent college, my parents hardly noticed. But they threw Mike a big celebration and purchased him a car to drive with when he decided to enroll in community college. Not mind that for years I had been riding 5 miles each way to my part-time work. I left right away to get away from the poisonous surroundings at home. I worked 2 jobs, pay debt, and negotiate college. Mike left a semester later, saying he didn't belong in college. Our parents entirely agreed with his choice, complimenting him for knowing himself and for not fitting social norms. Over the next 5 years, they even funded his string of failing companies. My family always found a way to drag me back in, even with the space I tried to create between us. Holiday dinners were a torture of subdued jabs and not quite subtle comparisons. "Oh, are you still working at that entry-level job?" "Well, Mike is considering launching another company. He is quite entrepreneurial." Not that I was really laying a solid career while Mike was devouring our folks' retirement money. I tried to keep a friendship with Mike despite all. Though it was always one-sided, he remained my brother after all. I would try to connect, reach out, and he would either ignore me or find some way to make the discussion into a competition he might win. Should I get promoted, he would suddenly have a great opportunity right ahead. If I began dating someone, he would also magically be in a committed relationship. I met Sarah in one of my attempts to get back in touch with Mike. We clicked right away as she was friends with one of his brief relationships. Smart, humorous, compassionate, and extremely beautiful, Sarah was everything I had ever wanted in a companion. We began dating, and for the first time in my life I felt really cherished and joyful. My parents were inevitably less than delighted. They questioned what Sarah saw in me and made disparaging remarks about how she was out of my level. Mike, on the other hand, started abruptly to show great interest in my life. Wanting to know everything about Sarah, he would ask about her non-stop. I was simply glad he seemed to be interested in something from my life at the time. Looking back, I ought to have spotted the warning signs. After 1 year of dating, Sarah and I moved in together and things were fantastic. We both drove, had decent jobs, and discussed the future. I began to feel as though perhaps, just maybe, I could have the great profession, loving partner, maybe even children someday that I had always wanted. On our 4th anniversary, I asked Sarah. It was simply a peaceful supper at home and a moving speech, nothing spectacular. She answered yes, and I thought I was on top of things. We agreed to engage in a protracted process and slow down wedding preparation. We had our whole life ahead of us. Or so I believed. We were not in a hurry. To put it mildly, the responses were mixed when we told my family we were engaged. Saying, "Oh, how nice," in a tone that implied it was anything but, my mother slapped on a fake grin. "Grunt," my dad murmured. "Good luck with that," then turned back to watch the TV. Mike, though, had the most unusual response. He praised us, but his smile seemed almost predatory and wrong. I dismissed it then, attributing it to my own fears. Work stress and wedding plans occupied the next year. Working long hours at our jobs, Sarah and I were saving money for the wedding and a down payment on a house. Though we saw less of each other than we used to, I reasoned it was only a phase. Every marriage experiences difficult times. Looking back, I ought to have seen the warning signals. Sarah grew more aloof, constantly on her phone, grinning at texts from someone she would rapidly claim to be merely an acquaintance from work. She began leaving more with her pals, arriving late home smelling of cologne and wine. I did, however, entirely trust her. I never even gave her any thought regarding possible cheating, let alone with my own brother. Sarah started acting somewhat strangely over 4 months ago. She was temperamental, restless, and often sick. Thrilled with the possibility, I considered perhaps she might be pregnant. We had not been trying, but we discussed wanting children at last. Imagining nursery colors and baby names, I began to arrange how I would help her. She dropped the bomb one evening after sitting down with tears in her eyes. Though not mine, she was pregnant. I looked shocked. Our hectic schedules had caused us not to be close in a while, but I never anticipated she would cheat on me. She broke down totally and mumbled, "It's Mike," when I inquired who the father was. My whole universe collapsed in that instant. Everything I knew, everything I had built my life around, came toppling. I found it difficult to breathe. I had no ideas. I could only feel this intense loss and treachery. Sarah tried to clarify. Her words came out in a hurry between sobbing. Apparently, it began during our engagement party. Mike had cornered her and informed her she was making a mistake in marriage. Playing on her insecurities, he reassured her she could do better and he could give her everything I couldn't. They had been having an affair for months, so it was not just a one-time occurrence. That evening, I sent Sarah out. I couldn't stand to look at her or be in the same room as the lady who had so totally betrayed me. She begged me to pardon her. Said it was a mistake. Said she loved me. But all I could think of was how many times she had lied to my face. She had been with my brother how many times wearing the ring I had given her? I phoned Mike after Sarah went. Not even now can I recall what I said. All of it was a haze of hurt and wrath. At first, he attempted to seem cool, saying it was only a drunken error and that it had no bearing on anything. He became hostile and responded, "Well, maybe if you'd have been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me." When I pressed him, I observed ready to do anything that would cause him regretting what he said, I got in my car and headed to his flat. Though I'm not sure what I intended to do, our parents were already there when I arrived. Mike apparently initially phoned them, crafting some narrative about how Sarah had seduced him and how terrible he felt. And you also know what? They came to believe him. Always they do. While my dad merely stood there with his arms crossed, looking disappointed in me, of course, not in his dear Mike, my mom started lecturing me about forgiveness and family right away. They wouldn't listen when I tried to describe exactly what happened. They insisted that since family comes first, I should forgive Mike and help Sarah through the pregnancy. I forgot. Years of pent-up wrath and bitterness spilled forth. I told them just what I thought of their distorted sense of devotion. How they had always favored Mike at my cost. How they never once stood on my side or helped me. Mike was dead to me, I informed him. He was no longer my brother. Since they no longer had me, I advised my parents they could have the son they had always desired. Ignoring their calls and pleads, I bolted. Without a goal in mind, I drove for hours just desiring to get away from everything and everyone. When I got home, I had hundreds of missed calls and messages, some from Sarah begging for another opportunity, some from Mike alternately between apologies and accusations, but most were from my parents, demanding that I grow up and atone. I seldom ate, hardly slept, ignored them all. Using all of my accumulated vacation time, I called out of business. I avoided everybody and found it intolerable to have to explain what had happened. Trying to find where I'd gone wrong, I simply sat in my apartment going back over every minute of my relationship with Sarah and every contact with Mike. 3 months have gone by now. To handle all this turmoil, I changed my number, relocated to a new apartment and began treatment. Still, my family won't let go. Even with my best attempts to cut touch, they find ways to meddle in my life. Starting to show up at my place of employment, they are trying to ambush me and drive a reconciliation. Crying about how I'm separating the family, my mother corners me in the parking lot. Gruff voicemails from my dad on how I should man up and pardon Mike. Mike has personally tried to approach me on a few occasions, but thus far I have been able to dodge him. To guilt trip me into forgiving Mike, they have even dispatched flying monkeys, that is, extended family members. Suddenly blowing my phone, aunts, uncles, cousins I haven't spoken to in years are reminding me how important family is and how I should let bygones be. They seem to be living in some other world where what Mike and Sarah did was only a minor error rather than a life-altering one. The most recent growth is yesterday Sarah sent me a note. She intends to co-parent with Mike and is keeping the baby. And now, guess what? About becoming grandparents, my parents are over the moon and totally overlooked the circumstances of how it happened and the nasty comments my mother and father made when Sarah was with me. Apologues and explanations abound in the letter, which discussed how Mike and she had discovered true love in trying circumstances. She even dared to add she hoped the child will benefit from us all being friends someday. I am at the very end of it. Part of me wants to simply sever ties entirely and start over somewhere else, perhaps go to another state, change my name, create a new life free from knowledge of this mess. Another side of me, though, is so enraged that I want to stay and fight so they may realize how screwed up things are overall. Not sure what to do going forward. Every sphere of my life has suffered from betrayal. Alone with my thoughts makes me uncomfortable. I never gave dating any thought either. I get terrified thinking of depending on someone like that. Folks who believe I should choose the high road and reconcile with my family, as if I am the one in the wrong for not wanting to play happy families with the folks who most wounded me, have lost friends over this too. The idea of Sarah and Mike having a kid together, a child that ought to have been mine, is like a continual knife in my stomach. Logically, the youngster is innocent in all this. The baby's parents are lying, cheating scumbags. It is not the baby's fault. But I cannot feel anything nice about its existence. My parents have begun discussing my obligation to participate in the lives of the child and my role as an uncle. I get sick physically at the idea. How am I expected to approach this child without spotting the final emblem of my brother's treachery? Reddit, I suppose my question is, Am I the expletive for not forgiving my brother and ex-fiancé? Is it bad of me to wish to terminate relations with my family over this? Any guidance on how to move forward would be much valued, since right now I feel as though gaslighting and treachery are drowning me in the sea. I understand this was lengthy. If you have read thus far, thank you. In a sense, just writing all this out has been relieving. I'm not sure what I should anticipate from publishing this. Maybe validation, guidance, or maybe just the opportunity to yell into the void and have someone, anybody, hear me. Edit. Holy mess, this exploded overnight. I appreciate all of your support and counsel. The response overwhelms me, and it will take some time to look over all the comments. Nonetheless, I wanted to answer some typical queries. 1. Certainly, I have discussed a restraining order against my family with a lawyer. It is under work. 2. No, I am not intending to interact with the baby. Although the child is not at fault, I cannot be engaged without losing my sanity. 3. For anyone curious about my employment, I have previously discussed the matter with HR. They are sympathetic and aware. They have given me the opportunity to work from home more regularly and raised front desk security levels. I appreciate their awareness. 4. Many of you have inquired whether I have given any thought to migrating to another city or state. I am very definitely considering this. There are offices of my company in various other cities, hence a relocation could be feasible. I am balancing the advantages and disadvantages. 5. To those advocating DNA testing, Sarah came clean about the affair and the chronology fits. I have no cause to think the child isn't Mike's. Even if by some miracle it turned out to be mine, I'm not sure I could ever look at that child without considering this. 6. The volume of persons relating such tales has overwhelmed me. Knowing how frequent this kind of treachery is breaks my heart, but it also curiously comforts me since I'm not alone. I appreciate everyone's vulnerability and sharing. 7. To the person asking whether I had thought about suing Mike for alienation of affection, I investigated it, but sadly, my state does not accept it. Though right now I'm not sure I have the stamina for a legal fight. 8. Several have noted that Mike's actions seem egotistical. Many of the articles I have begun reading about narcissistic personality disorder speak to me. Though not justification, some of his behavior helps me to comprehend. 9. For anyone wondering about Sarah's family, they are as startled and repulsed as one would anticipate. They have cut off communication with her and contacted me to give their support. Though little consolation, I value it. 10. To the person wondering whether I considered having children of my own someday, to be honest, this whole experience has made me doubt whether I want a family at all. I'm trying, though, not to make any major decisions while I'm still digesting things. Though I'll let you know if anything noteworthy occurs. Right now I'm concentrating on recovery and forward movement. Once more, thanks to Reddit. More than you would realize, you have contributed. Your guidance and encouragement have really been a lifeline amid trying circumstances and have given me much to consider. Though I can't answer every remark, kindly know I'm reading them all and they help me feel less isolated in this. Update 1. Hey Reddit, it's been a total rollercoaster 2 weeks since my last post. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the great advice and support. Reading over all your responses has been both sad and yet consoling. I never anticipated my post to explode like that. The frequency of this sort of treachery is disorganizing. To put it mildly, the last several weeks have been demanding. Recall my remark of working on a restraining order. That descended into a complete ordeal though. We had a hearing booked after my attorney turned in the paperwork. Given the facts and ongoing harassment, I felt it would be simple. I corrected myself. With their own attorney, an elegant man in an expensive suit most likely charging more per hour than I earn in a week, my parents turned up for the hearing. Claiming I was separating the family over a basic misunderstanding. As if Mike had stumbled and fallen into my fiancé, they painted me as the unstable one. Luckily the judge was not purchasing it. She issued the restraining order against Mike and my parents, but not without my mother crying in the courtroom and my father gazing at me like I had just committed murder. Mike's expression though, I swear, if looks could kill, I would be 6 feet under. Mike tried to get to me as we were exiting the courtroom, reminding his attorney of the recently imposed restraining order. She stood between us. Mike merely scoffed and stated that I couldn't hide behind a piece of paper permanently. This is not over. If I said his remarks didn't knock me a bit, I would be lying. For now, at least I have some legal protection. Another dream has been the office scenario. Recall how I mentioned my family had started showing up at my workplace? That reached a head last week though. My assistant buzzed in reporting my mother was in the lobby and creating a scene while I was in a meeting with a client. She apparently brought a photo album and was trying to show my colleagues infant images of Mike and me as she sobbed over how her boys used to be so close. I left the conference and descended to the lobby, where I discovered my mother surrounded by a bunch of awkward-looking colleagues. She was midway in recounting how Mike and I used to bathe each other when young children. She rushed toward me when she saw me, chatting about a baby shower, but I stopped her. She should leave right away, I told her, or I would call the cops and have her taken off for trespassing against the restraining order. Her expression resembled what I would have slapped her with, but after everything they have gone through, I couldn't muster myself to care. Security let her out, and I had to spend the next hour damage management with my employer and colleagues. Fortunately, most of them were understanding, but I could see others were wondering what kind of drama I was bringing into the workplace. Still, the incident with Mike was where it truly veers off course. I was at the gym last Saturday working out some of my resentment on the punching bag. I was so intent on my exercise that I didn't see someone approaching me until I heard his voice. As I whirled around, Mike was grinning at me like he hadn't just broken the restraining order. He began to run his lips loud enough for others close to hear. He chuckled when I urged him to go before I phoned the police, claiming he would tell them how I had been threatening Sarah and him. I became lost at that point. My fist hooked with his jaw as I struck at him. He stammered back, then launched himself at me. Except this time, no one told me to be the larger person and let Mike win. We ended up on the floor trading punches like we were kids again, without parents to break us up. Before the gym personnel drew us apart, I made a few decent hits. I could feel my eye bulging closed while Mike's nose was bleeding. We were both screaming, seeking release and aiming at one another once more. It was only when the gym manager threatened to call the police that I snapped out of it. I got ready and headed off. Still pulsing with excitement, I answered a call from an unidentified number as I was headed home. Against better taste, I responded to it. Sarah, shouting at me about how I had cracked Mike's nose, might require surgery. I laughed. It was not against will. Her anger at me following all they had done seemed ridiculous, too much. I apologized to her for hurting her little boyfriend, the one she had been sleeping with behind my back for months. She began to cry then, continuing on about her stress, how the baby could sense her misery and how selfish I could be. I blocked the number and hung on hers. The fight produced quite a strong blowback. News had crept across our social circle like wildfire. Texts from friends and relatives, some supporting me and others calling me names for beating my poor defenseless brother, were exploding on my phone. Reaching out once more, Sarah's parents expressed their dismay in their daughter and reiterated their support of me. Though at this point I'll take anything I can get, it was a meager comfort. Nowadays, the restraining order seems inadequate. Mike has proved he is ready to break it, hence I'm concerned about his future actions. The legal fallout has been a horror show. My attorney called me the day following the gym incident. Mike apparently had accused me of assault. I described what had happened. How Mike had provoked me. How he had broken the restraining order. We would fight it, my lawyer groaned, but given that I delivered the first punch, it might be an uphill struggle. We are already pressing our own charges against Mike for breaching the restraining order. Though nothing is definite, my attorney feels sure this will strengthen our case. I had to show the cops the marks on my face and knuckles and make statements to them. Having to defend myself against my own brother makes one embarrassed. Mike and I have been banned from the gym, although I can't say I blame them. It sucks. That gym was one of the only places I felt I could properly release some of my wrath. I have always been close to my cousin Amy, so she contacted me the other day. The family has been complaining a lot about her supporting me, but she is not wavering. She shared with me some of what goes on behind the scenes. My parents apparently have been telling everyone I'm experiencing some sort of mental collapse. They claim I'm just jealous and can't let go since Sarah and Mike's relationship began shortly following our breakup. While some family members are buying it, Amy notes that many others are not. Knowing that they are out there propagating lies about me while I'm trying to keep my head down and heal irritates me. Things at work have been, to put it mildly, strained. I can sense my colleagues are walking on eggshells around me following the incident with my mother in the lobby and the fight with Mike that is trending on local social media. Early this week, my manager summoned me into his office. He began by stating he valued me as an employee and that I'm going through a trying period, but then he really hit me. He believes it would be best if I took a break just till things calm down. If you would want, he continued, we can call it a personal sabbatical, paid, of course. I wanted to disagree, telling him that right now only work keeps me sane, but I could see the choice had already been taken. I agreed, thanked him for his patience, and got to work packing my office. Two of my colleagues were gossiping about how my brother had got my fiancée pregnant as I was leaving. I departed slamming my office door louder than required, Rather pleased to see them jump. Saying all of this isn't hurting me would be dishonesty. To get out of my apartment, I have started late-night lengthy rides. Sometimes I find myself wondering how the hell my life turned into such a mess when parked outside my previous apartment, the one I lived with Sarah. Amid all of this turmoil, I discovered help from an unlikely source, Sarah's younger sister Emma. Emma contacted me on social media, apologizing for her sister's behavior and lending her support. I was first dubious. What if this were some sort of trick? But after chatting with her, I found she shares my hatred of Sarah's actions. She has been sharing with me details on Sarah and Mike's life. Apparently, they have moved in together and act as though they did not simply blow up many lives to be together. Emma says Sarah has been trying to present herself as the victim in all this, sobbing to anybody who will listen about how she never meant to hurt anyone. And in what ways she and Mike are soulmates who found each other against all odds. I get ill to my stomach from it, but I appreciate Emma keeping me current. After all, information is power, even if it is knowledge I would prefer not have. Another horror has been the social media scenario. When it comes to social media, I have always been a really quiet person. But this whole incident has put me in an unwelcome public view. On a local Facebook group, someone, probably one of Mike's buddies, posted about our gym brawl. The post omitted our names, but it sufficiently detailed the circumstances to allow anyone who knows us to work it out. The section on comments became a battlefield. Some people were supporting me, claiming Mike received his just compensation. Others called me erratic and advised I should be locked up. One night after a few too many beers, I made the grave error of looking over some of the comments. I ended up hard enough tossing my phone across the room to break the screen. Since then, I have turned off most of my social media accounts. The continuous alerts and the messages from folks I haven't spoken to in years suddenly wanting all the juicy specifics of my personal life make me unable to handle it. Having all that has transpired, I have come to see I cannot continue to live in this city. Too many memories abound, too many opportunities for running across either Mike or Sarah or my parents. I've been researching moves inside my organization. Our Seattle office has a seemingly interesting opening. Though I've never loved continuous rain, at this point I would relocate to the moon if it would mean escaping all this drama. Though I have not yet made any decisions, the concept of a fresh start is growing more and more intriguing. New city, new apartment, new life. Somewhere nobody remembers me as the man whose brother knocked down his fiancée. Since the restraining order was obtained, my parents have been unusually silent. I'm waiting for the other shoe to fall so they may find some fresh approach to try to push their way back into my life. Sarah has been distributing the word of her pregnancy all around. Emma tells me she has been sharing regular updates on social media, ultrasound images, belly shots, the works, always with a caption regarding how grateful she and Mike are, how thrilled they are to start their family. Every additional bit of data feels like a fresh wound opening, the hurt just waiting to resurface when I start to heal. Right now then, is where things stand. I felt 2 weeks ago that my life could not become any more disorganized, but strangely it has. I still hurt and am angry, but I also am exhausted. Tired of justifying myself. Thus Reddit, I suppose this is more of an update than a change of direction. Not sure, a cry into the emptiness. Right now I'm not even clear about what I'm asking for. Advice? Affordability? Time machine? I could go back and never introduce Sarah to my brother. I'll attempt to keep you all informed whatever occurs going forward. More to me than you could realize is the result of your support. It's encouraging to be reminded that even if it seems as though lies and treachery rule my entire life, there are still decent individuals out there. Final update. Hey Reddit, I'm back with what I expect to be my last post on this entire fiasco after not updating for a week. First of all, I want to thank each of you for your help and guidance along this process. During the worst of my life, your comments have been a lifeline. Where therefore ought one to start? In just 7 days, a lot has transpired. I am still working to sort it all. I suppose I would begin with the most important news. I am relocating. Indeed, that's correct. I jumped in and agreed to a transfer to our Seattle headquarters. Though it was not a simple choice, I felt I needed a fresh start following all that had gone down. The choice followed last week's really difficult day. I had just returned from another meeting with my attorney regarding Mike's assault allegations when I came upon a note in my mailbox. From Sarah it was. Curiosity won me over even though I nearly threw it away without opening it. Inside was a handwritten note discussing her and Mike's great excitement about their baby and an ultrasonic image. She continued on regarding how the baby would love to have its uncle in its life and how I could find it in my heart to be pleased for them. Red caught my eye. I had grabbed my phone, unblocked Sarah, and phoned her before I knew what I was doing. She grabbed up the second ring and I let loose. I informed her exactly what I considered her, Mike, and their contented small family to be. If she believed I would ever want anything to do with that child, I told her she was insane. As far as I could tell, Mike, the baby, and she could all go to hell. Though it wasn't my best moment, it seemed like I'd at last uttered all the things I had been holding back. I realized then I had to leave this city. That same evening, I phoned my supervisor and said I wanted to move to Seattle. To be really honest, he seemed relieved. He was probably concerned about how this drama would damage the business. He guaranteed to expedite the documentation, and by the next morning it was official. 2 weeks allowed me to pack my life and go across the nation. My family and social circle soon started to buzz with word of my relocation. Normally, my parents were rather angry. Once more breaking the restraining order, they showed up at my flat unannounced trying to talk me out of it. Saying I was deserting the family, my mother was crying. Red-faced and furious with my selfish and immature behavior, my dad was ranting. I stayed quiet. I just phoned the cops and had them taken off for breaching the restraining order. My mother yelled that I would regret this, that family was everything, and I was throwing it all away as they were being let out. I just closed the door and resumed packing. Mike responded in a different way. Presumably because of ongoing legal concerns, he did not try to personally reach out to me. Instead, he posted a long piece on social media on how some people struggle to see others happy and on how he and Sarah were overcoming hate to concentrate on their new family. Clearly meant for me, it sought to present himself as the victim. Though I'll confess it stung to see how many people liked and commented in support of him, I told myself that their viewpoint doesn't count as they don't know the reality. Among the most unexpected responses was Sarah's. Following our phone talk, she contacted her sister Emma, who, should you recall, had been keeping me informed on Sarah and Mike's developments. My statements apparently struck closer than I had anticipated. Emma informed me Sarah had broken down, confessing she was afraid of the future and felt what she and Mike had done was terrible. Bless her, my cousin Amy said she could help me pack. She even informed me further about the family situation. Amy informed me that my aunt, the sister of my mother, had a major blowout with her mother, calling her out for consistently favoring Mike and driving me away. It grew really heated, with my aunt remarking that with their years of favoritism, my mom and dad were reaping what they had created. That someone is at last calling them out on their behavior makes me somewhat happy. Although the legal matter is still under flux, my attorney tells me that my relocation has no bearing on anything. Mike broke the restraining order, hence we are still charging him fees, and we are contesting the assault accusations he leveled against me. Given Mike's track record of breaking the restraining order, my attorney feels sure the judge would see through his lies. Moving across the nation should also help prove that I am not a threat to Mike, thereby helping to have his charges dropped. After this, I'm not sure whether I will publish any more updates. Starting anew means bidding farewell to the past, and as beneficial as this community has been, I believe it's time for me to distance myself from rewriting this narrative. I have to concentrate on starting my new life instead of muckering the old one. This thus seems to be my last update. Hope for me, Reddit. In Seattle, I have a completely fresh life ready for me and want to maximize it. Am I the asshole for exposing my dad's girlfriend after she tried to kick me out and faked a pregnancy? I'm M20, and I was a former foster kid. I was never adopted before I aged out, but I was placed with Joe when I was 10, and we were long-term matched by the time I was 14. Joe's the only real family I've ever had, and I consider him my dad. Even though the whole adoption thing never happened. When I first moved in with Joe, he was married, but his wife passed away suddenly when I was 12. That was tough on both of us, but we managed to get through it together. Now, Joe's been dating his current girlfriend, Sarah, for about 2 years. She didn't come over much, and when she did it was pretty brief. But 3 weeks ago she moved into our house because she lost her job and couldn't afford rent anymore. I don't know if she was always like this or if moving in has brought out a different side of her, but Sarah's been acting really strange. Whenever Joe isn't around, she completely ignores me, won't even look at me when I speak, won't answer questions, nothing. At first I thought it might be some kind of anxiety thing. But now it started getting worse. For example, when Joe's at work and I'm in the lounge watching a movie, she'll come in and start blasting TikTok on her phone or playing music, totally disregarding the fact that I'm there. When I ask her to turn it down, she just flat out ignores me. And it's not just the ignoring that's the problem. She started saying some pretty nasty stuff about me too. She FaceTimed her friend while I was in the room and talked about how lazy I am and how I don't contribute anything to the household. Yesterday, I was sitting on the sofa watching the new Deadpool movie when she came and sat across from me, FaceTiming her friend again. She started talking about how she and Joe are trying for a baby and how excited they are because neither of them have had children before. Those exact words. It felt like a slap in the face. I know Joe wouldn't have said something like that because he considers me his son. So either she's making it up, or I don't even know what. I haven't told Joe about the things she's been saying to her friend because I don't want to mess up his first real relationship since his wife died. But this situation is seriously eating me up inside. I mentioned the situation to a few people and a couple of them suggested that I secretly record her behavior when Joe isn't around so that he can see what's really going on. It seemed like a good idea at first, but when I talked to one of my close friends about it, he said that secretly recording her could just make things worse. He thinks it might make Joe feel like I'm going behind his back and could cause even more tension, especially if Sarah twists it to make me look bad. So, WABTA if I secretly recorded her to show Joe what she's really like, or should I just avoid it altogether? I don't want to seem like I'm trying to sabotage his relationship, but I'm not sure what else to do. Relevant comments. November 8485. You need to talk to Joe. You can record it in case he doesn't believe you, but you need to talk to him ASAP. And you might also have to work on your exit plan in case it backfires, which it can. People in love do strange things at times. NTA. OOP. I don't think Joe would ever kick me out, but you're right, I should have a backup plan just in case. Call 20. So many parents kick out kids when a new relationship forms and the kid doesn't get on with the new spouse. Don't be blindsided by something that is a huge possibility. You're an adult. Joe's GF could have the very easy argument that you're an adult and need to move out so they can work on furthering their relationship. Having a child together would absolutely be a reason he would side with her. NTA, out of curiosity, you have only explained that you lounge and watch TV. Are you contributing to the household in any way? If Joe's GF is contributing to the household, I can see why she would have an issue floating with you. OOP, well, I'm still at college. Americans would call this high school. But it's summer. As a foster care leaver, Joe is paid £300 per week by the government to support me until I finish. This will carry on until I finish university or until I'm 25, whichever is first. I also get universal credit which I use for most of my expenses. OOP goes on to state, high school usually ends at 18 here also, but I've had to redo some learning that I missed. Huge_Lime 826 Get your ass off the couch and contribute to the home. Seems to me you are too stupid to realize that he will pick his girlfriend bedmate over a 20-year-old taking up space and pissing off his hot girlfriend. You don't realize it, but unless you start contributing your days are numbered. So you're off school for the summer. Why don't you have a job to go to every day instead of sitting your ass on the couch? OP, who hurt you? Huge_Lime 826 Nobody hurt me. But I did have enough common sense to get my ass off the couch and not play video games as a 20-year-old and then bitch about somebody who actually is contributing to the household. If he doesn't believe the girlfriend is more important to Joe than he is, he has blinders on. Just wait until she has a baby. He needs to wake up and get his ass off the couch and contribute to the family. 20 years old is not a time to be sitting on the couch playing video games to get a job. Automatic_mirror_825. It's time to fly out of the nest, find a job, and/or college. Build your own life. You are an adult, young, male, with lots of opportunities. Sorry_I_guess responding to automatic_mirror_825. This young man didn't have a stable home until he was 10. He went through a traumatic childhood, and his life's trajectory is not the same as most people's, so developmentally it may be important for him to take a little longer to feel safe and confident. Hell, he's still finishing his secondary education due to those complications. And you have literally no idea what opportunities he does or doesn't have. As long as his father is happy to have him there, who are you to tell him he needs to leave home? What a shitty, presumptuous thing to say. Silent Prune 8103. Going to school isn't contributing to the household. Doing chores, taking out the trash, preparing dinner, doing laundry, sweeping the floors, vacuuming, doing repairs around the house. Contributing to the sustainment of your family's home and health of it so it doesn't burden others. That's my responsibility. If she finds herself or Joe doing all of this, then I would be annoyed as well. You're an adult. As an adult, you should be contributing without being told the responsibilities of maintaining the home. I would say getting a job as well at your age. Many folks go to school and have a part-time job, but if that's not the case, you can help around the house. I guarantee if you're doing those things, Joe and possibly her will have a different positive opinion of you. Update. I decided to talk to Joe directly instead of secretly recording Sarah. I thought it would be more mature, sensible, and non-confrontational to handle things face to face. My mindset was that if he didn't take it seriously, then I'd consider recording to show him what was really going on. When Joe got home from work, I asked him to talk privately in my room. He seemed a bit confused at first, but I made it clear that I wasn't trying to sabotage his relationship. I just needed to tell him that some things Sarah was doing were making me uncomfortable. I reminded him about how she ignores me and mentioned how she plays videos while I'm watching TV, but when I told him she said that he didn't have any children and that they were trying for a baby, he looked really upset. It felt a bit awkward, but Joe called Sarah into the room to talk with us. He asked her if what I said was true and she immediately denied it. You could see from her body language that she was lying. I'm not sure if she just never expected me to say anything about how she's been treating me or what. Joe firmly told her that this is my house, not hers, and that while she's a guest here, she can't be disrespecting me. Things got a little heated, and in the end, she apologized to me, though it was through gritted teeth. I accepted the apology, even though I'm not sure it was genuine. After that, Joe asked if I was still comfortable with her staying with us. I said I was because I didn't want to break them up. I just wanted to tell him what was happening. However, she decided to stay at her friend's house for the night, which made the situation feel even more tense. I can tell Joe is really upset now, and I feel super guilty for making him feel this way. He insists it's not my fault and we ended up having kebabs for tea, but even so I can't shake the feeling that I've caused a huge fight between them. Joe went to bed early, and now I'm stuck feeling bad about the whole situation. I just hope that whatever happens next, things will settle down. Thank you everyone. Update 2. So, about a month ago, things seemed to be getting better, at least on the surface. Joe and Sarah got back together, and I gave them my blessing because Joe really wanted it to work. Sarah even moved back into the house, and she was actually being decent to me, which was a change. But honestly, I always felt like she was just putting on an act. I had this nagging feeling that she still didn't like me and was only being nice because her other option was to be homeless. It all went downhill really fast though. Less than a week after moving back in, Sarah announced that she was pregnant with Joe's baby. And that's when the real chaos started. She dropped this ultimatum on Joe. Either I move out, or she'd break up with him and make it impossible for him to be involved with the baby. Joe was torn because he didn't want her or the baby to be homeless, but he also made it clear that I wasn't going anywhere. I'm his family, and he wouldn't kick me out for anything. So Joe told Sarah that they'd have to break up for good after she gave him the ultimatum. He even kicked her out again. That's when things got even crazier. Sarah started messaging Joe, saying she was going to get an abortion because she couldn't afford to be pregnant. Joe, being the good guy he is, offered to send her money and even pay for her rent so she wouldn't be homeless, but she kept playing games. Anyway, I was borrowing Joe's iPad one day and I saw that Sarah's iMessage was still linked to it. I accidentally stumbled across her messages to a friend where she admitted she wasn't pregnant at all. She was just lying to get money from Joe and had this whole plan to drag him along for months before pretending to get an abortion. She even said she was going to make Joe's life miserable because he kicked her out. I felt sick to my stomach reading those messages. I took a screen recording of the entire chat, including the phone numbers and everything so she couldn't deny it or say that it was faked. When I showed Joe, he was completely heartbroken. He's stopped sending her money, but now he's unsure about what to do next. He's even thinking of reporting her to the police for fraud. But part of him just wants to cut her out of his life completely and move on. I've never seen Joe this hurt, and I feel so guilty because I know all of this is stressing him out. I'm still in shock over how horrible Sarah turned out to be. Even with everything that's happened before, I never thought she'd do something this low. Now, we're just trying to figure out how to move forward from all of this. I found a tampon in my husband's car and another in our bedroom. Our youngster suddenly got new clothes that I didn't buy, so I assumed he was cheating. For 7 years, married for 4, I, 29F, have been with my spouse, 30M. I have never had cause to fear he was even slightly unhappy with our marriage or even disloyal to me. He enjoys making jokes about us still experiencing the honeymoon phase with 2 children in tow almost 5 years. Had it not for the shocking discovery in his car last month, I would not have questioned it or him. I saw something slatted between the cushions when buckling our daughter into her car seat. Pulling it out, I found it to be a tampon. Had I not had an IUD stopping my period for the past year and had not even noticed the wrapper type, this would not have been so strange. When I told my husband where I had found it and why I was almost sure it wasn't mine, he seemed not to know what it was, let alone why I was holding it. He shrugged and said most likely Fiona, his coworker, owned it. My husband often commutes to lunch with his colleagues, and as we live somewhat close to Fiona and her husband, I assumed it was quite likely the tampon had dropped out of her bag either any time he had driven with her or given her a ride. Not particularly significant. I dismissed it until a few weeks later, when we had supper with Fiona and her husband. I had so wanted to believe my husband, yet I couldn't get over the way it had been buried in the seat and how my husband had seemed to have no concern for it whatsoever. Perhaps he was acting stupidly. It's unknown. I did something that, looking back, I find really insane. While we were out together, I staged an emergency and asked Fiona whether she carried any tampons. I sighed with relief when she handed me one nearly exactly like the tampon I had discovered in our back seat. Thus, the tampon there was most likely the same one used here, and most likely, there was an innocent explanation for why it had been placed in the back seat in the first place. Until I discovered another tampon this morning, this time in my sock drawer, I assumed I would have seen the last of the out-of-place feminine hygiene goods. The idea of my husband having an affair makes me physically sick. Even more nauseated the idea that the lady might have left these tampons out for me to find. Should it be my husband's coworker, why would she offer me one the other night and give herself away? Under any other circumstance, I would want to discuss this with my husband. But I feel too ill and ashamed to approach him with what I discovered. What action ought I to take? Comments. I never put a tampon in a sock drawer. I had a period 30 years ago. Trust your gut, then get cameras. Neither does I. I have thought up so many reasons for the tampons that would not point to my spouse, but none of them actually make sense. If it means verifying what I currently suspect, I'm afraid to set up a camera. Has Fiona dropped by your house and had time to plant the tampon? She visited our house numerous times, and vice versa. She wasn't over any time in the past week, hence if she planted that second tampon, she had to have found a window of time when I wasn't home. Every time she and her husband visit, we all stay downstairs. You would have to go rather far to get to our bedroom. That is, past the other bedrooms, around our dogs, over the safety gate. Not saying it's impossible, but on a brief toilet stop it's really difficult. I would guess. Your children's ages are, could they have located a tampon and randomly placed it? 2 and nearly 4. Both have a mischievous streak, hence I didn't want to rule out the chance of one of them shifting stuff around, but I can't see how they could get their hands on one, maybe 2 odd tampons that I never bought. Update 1. My own hell for the past few weeks has been thinking about every conceivable source of 2 tampons. Nonetheless, I wanted to provide an update. Not long after uploading on here, I told my sister what happened. The tampon from Fiona, my husband's ignorance, the tampon in the back seat and the one in the sock drawer. All the things I suspected but didn't want to accept. The tampons, save from the one I had already thrown away, matched exactly in varying absorbencies. I hadn't left any where my husband or daughters would have found them and relocated them. Regarding what they were or where they had come from, my daughters were clueless. With my spouse or without, my sister was sure it was Fiona. She advised asking Fiona and her husband over for our Labor Day barbecue since direct confrontation of either party still sounded like a horrible idea. Sadly, they already had preparations in mind. Our house for any misplaced or foreign items, there were none. My sister and I agreed that it was too soon for cameras without any other evidence, so it was just a waiting game from there. Watching my husband for any changed behavior, there was none, and even the girls for any new friends they could have met. The final aspect was especially important to my sister's husband, and it helped to explain his inclination to think the tampons were safe. Given my husband was the one driving the children to and from daycare and most other activities during the week. If anything had been happening in or around our house, he said it would be almost impossible to keep from me and the girls. That helped me somewhat to feel better. I felt differently only till my younger kid, 2 years old, dropped something down last week. My husband demanded that I continue at work while he stayed home with her, even though I wanted to be the one looking after her. I had no problem with that. At that point, we were all already starting to move past the tampon crisis since my sister and her husband considered it as a positive indication that he would take the time off at short notice. By the 3rd or 4th day, I was merely glad to see a nearly healthy child and a spouse supporting her through it. But towards the conclusion of that week, I returned to find something unusual. Now clad in a onesie I had never seen before, the child I had left that morning in an old PJ set had a small clip in her hair. Though I have a very decent idea of what my children wear on a daily basis, especially in terms of attire, I cannot say I have the best recollection. Before we would have our second, I had vowed off full-length sleep suits with snaps across the front long before. Long snaps are simply a pain in the ass and a no-go for effective diaper changes. Just not something I would dress her in. My hubby knows as much. He definitely doesn't accessorize the girls' clothes and neither does he plan for or buy them. The idea of someone being around our ill child without our awareness confused and rather stunned me. I went straight to inquire whether anyone had been over to visit my spouse or the girls. I didn't second think. Like before, he seemed perplexed and asked me why I would believe that. All day it had been him and the children. Once more, I asked him whether someone had stopped over to say hello. He denied it. I should cool off, he advised. Our oldest daughter was in the room and realized something was wrong, so even if I might have screamed out and came forward with the charges right then and there. My husband swore that the girls had not been with anyone but him. I asked him a third time in a subdued manner if anyone had been near our children. He also denied styling anyone's hair or shopping for new clothing. I chose to leave since our daughter was in the room and my feelings were all over the range. Then I couldn't make sense of it. It hardly looks clearer now after I drove myself mad with illogical arguments. Comments. My 2-year-old can only string a few words at a time to respond to a few inquiries. She responds depending on the cues I provide when I question her about her time with daddy or her wardrobe. I might inquire, "Who gave you that pretty bow?" And she might answer pretty bow back to me, or mama, or daddy over and over. Almost 4, my older daughter was in daycare that morning. She cannot remember anything different from that day. Her memory of the PJ change or the hair clip is lacking, hence my estimate is she was changed during that morning, but I'm not sure exactly. My 45-minute trip to work makes stopping for lunch very impractical. My sister has not observed anything unusual. She has been gracious enough to leave work and drive past several times here and there. At the front door is a Ring camera. I have the app on my phone with alerts enabled. Not yet, nothing exists. I'm merely the least tech-savvy person, hence I would be open to suggestions for more covert surveillance, worried another camera will be easy to find. Edit. We indeed routinely test our carbon monoxide detectors. One of the hair clips might have originated from a daycare. Although I could see the hair clip as a possibility, less plausible with the onesie. If either of my younger daughters had returned with something like that before, I would have noticed, especially since it was the kind of onesie I detest with a passion, LOL. She hadn't been to daycare in days. People say they are eager to know how this story ends. The Hollywood horror ending is my financial one. Hopefully, I dreamed about the dogs too so I could at last quit gathering their imagined shits and things. Update 2. I knew I was nowhere with the accusations and half-baked guesses after almost losing my head over a hair clip and a onesie. I wasn't sleeping, eating or taking care of myself the way I should have been since I was so consumed in the paranoia and suffering of my circumstances and I wasn't getting any answers. I thus decided to activate the hidden cameras and have them sent to my sister's house. My brother-in-law agreed to assist with the install/setup at my place. Still, I got my much-needed validation before the cameras were ever delivered. Last week, while I was at work, a Ring alert let me know the motion at the front door. Half expecting to see a delivery person, pet or lawn care salesman for the 15th time, you may picture my astonishment when I watched a footage of a young woman leading my daughter into the house hand in hand with my husband and our other daughter close by. My spouse was at work. The girls were meant to be in childcare. From what I knew, the wife was residing 2 states away under court order keeping her there. I asked my husband straight away what this woman was doing in our house. He ignored me, so I texted him. Knowing I had received the Ring alert, he most likely understood he had messed up by entering the front door and sought to postpone the unavoidable. He was foolish too. But after the 5th or 6th call he at last answered. As I would subsequently learn, the woman on the camera was my husband's sister. She most certainly supplied the bow, the onesie, and the tampons. She is also a recovered addict who spent the better part of her childhood and young adulthood pressuring the silence of another one of my husband's family members following her molestation. She is also a registered sex offender. Years had passed without seeing or hearing from her, and from the way my husband spoke about her, I never expected I would. But here she was, in our house surrounded by our kids. Let me say, I was enraged. Though it was hardly an affair at all, knowing who it was and why all of this had been happening made it much more repulsive. My husband was particularly high on the list since my sister-in-law, fresh out of another stay in recovery, had wanted to rebuild relationships with those she had harmed. My husband had been meeting in secret, usually at our house while I was at work, not wanting me to know, or worse, keep her away from our family and children. They would come in via the garage in my husband's car so the Ring camera at the front entrance wouldn't alert me. She had even stayed in our bed overnight on a weekend when I had gone on a business trip. On a night my husband told me he dropped off our daughters, she watched over them. She bought the girls' clothes and dressed my youngest in the onesie and bow, the identical ones my husband had promised in his life that I had dressed her in myself. My spouse insisted this was all in my head, the tampons, the one piece, the bow, everything else. shrugging aside each increasingly disturbing revelation like it was news to him and telling me I was being unreasonable. He was quite happy to see me suffer for weeks over a lady he maintained did not exist. 2 years after I had given birth to a child, 4 years after I had told him one of my main worries about parenthood was PPD like my mother had experienced with me. I worried about not being totally present for our children and about having shame and remorse all around as they got older. He advised me to get back off and reassess my mental health. I missed the girls too much and wasn't sleeping enough. Since he was my spouse and since no other way of events made sense, I gave him the benefit of the doubts. After a month of this mental game, I have nothing to show for my trust except this miserable state and a great deal of resentment. Call the cops and a lawyer, comments 1. Reaction. Already on it. We are, believe me, walking burnt ground with this. My church banned our young worship leader for condemning Christian nationalism during a service. Other band members want to walk out. Original post. My church's youth group has a youth band that leads worship during youth, but the church also has them lead worship on Sunday mornings every few weeks, to promote the youth band when the usual worship team has a week off. I'm not in the band, but I often help with lyric PowerPoints along with another girl, but not when the band plays on Sundays. The main singer of the youth band is the daughter of a youth assistant, and the daughter is an assistant too. We'll call her Emma, she's 20. I'm writing because of what happened the last time the youth band led Sunday worship on 6/30. That led to Emma and her family leaving the church. In between one of the songs, Emma said she felt led to say that Christian nationalism wasn't of God, because forcing people to believe went against the basis of Christianity because God gave free will and too many Christians forgot that. She also said there would be no short and narrow path if people were forced to walk it before saying Project 2025 was advertised as Christian but resembled nothing of God, because God never forced people to believe in Him. No one confronted her or anything as it was brief, and they played a few more songs along with the closing song after the pastor finished his sermon. But when we got to youth on Friday night, Emma and her mother weren't there. And we were later informed, by the youth pastor, that Emma and her mom would no longer be helping the youth before a bunch of stuff about giving others the chance to be lead singers because Emma had left the church. However, word got out from one of the band's players that Emma told the band that she got banned during the week and that her parents left the church with her, so they already knew before we found out at youth. The reason I'm making this post is because of a conversation I had with the band and other PowerPoint girl, the same Friday the youth pastor announced it, and the conversation was private from the rest of the kids. Long story short, the band is upset about what happened to Emma, and they've been throwing around ideas on what to do. The one they're heavily considering is a walkout the next time they're scheduled to play on Sunday after playing the intro song. Service opens with an intro song before someone comes on stage to welcome everyone before worship continues, and they would voice support for Emma before walking out together. They haven't told anyone not associated with the band because they don't want anyone to spill the deets. But the main thing we're debating is repercussions from our parents and whether or not it's worth the risk. There's likely a few weeks until the band plays on Sunday again, and they still haven't decided on a new lead singer yet. I also want to add that the church didn't upload the worship portion of the service with Emma and only uploaded the sermon from that day. They always include worship on their YouTube upload of the service. Most of the concerns were around tuition punishments as some of them have their parents helping pay, but they still want to do something. And while I'm not in the band technically aside from coordinating PowerPoint lyrics occasionally, I figured the least I could do was get advice from other adults anonymously because we don't want to ask our parents for obvious reasons, and maybe others could see more pros and cons that we can. I appreciate any advice that anyone gives and will relay it to the band too. Thanks to anyone who read this too. Edit. I forgot to add this detail in my post, but the pastor of our church has used the pulpit to speak politics in the past and has even mentioned support of a presidential candidate on numerous occasions along with other political topics on occasion too, Roe v. Wade and gay rights. So while I agree that politics probably shouldn't be spoken in church, some of the band said that Emma was tired of the often political topics being brought up during sermons, thus why she said what she said. First update. I want to thank to everyone who commented on my original post because it was way more than I expected, and many of you had really helpful advice. This is a small update with some really surprising things that happened since. First, the band is still going through with the walkout, and they're keeping it within the band so that no other kids tell their parents who might tell leaders. It would have been awesome to include others, but the risk of the church catching wind was too great. Second, we have a date of 8 quarters when the youth band will do worship for the adults again. Third, The youth pastor appointed a singer from within the group who will take turns singing on Sundays with future participants in the coming weeks. Fourth, the new singer agreed that the church's handling of Emma was BS. Fifth and most exciting, two of the band members told non-religious relatives about the situation and fear of punishment, and they agreed to come to the service and let them head to their cars in the parking lot straight from the walkout, for safety. They won't leave the lot in case some parents try to claim kidnapping, but will be in their cars if all goes well, and the rest of us are going to ask our relatives too. Sixth, one of the band members told a teacher they knew from school who's thinking about coming and walking out too. And seventh, one of the band members wrote a little something that the lead singer will read before they walk off stage, and it would be great if anyone with editing experience could help to make it clearer or provide advice on what to add. They tried to keep it short. I will make a post about their write-up in the near future. Here's how we hope it happens. The band will play the opening song, which officially starts service, and usually lets people know it's starting. Many make their way from the foyer during the intro song. And after someone gives the welcome prayer after the opening song, the lead singer will then give the speech before the band walks off stage, and I will walk out with them from the pews along with relatives' friends. One relative said she might bring some people she knows too, which could make more of a statement to the church to see adults leaving too. One of the relatives will also record the whole thing in case any parents don't react well to it, and I will update after it happens. If anyone has any further advice, it would be appreciated, and I'll bring it to the band. Most of the band, outside of two seniors, aren't old enough to vote this year, but this is a chance to stand up for what's right against something that is adamantly infusing itself into Christianity, Christian nationalism, and making Christianity lose all of its respect in our opinion. We don't expect change to happen in the church as a result of our walkout, but it's a small thing we can do to say we did our part when faced with it ourselves. Another commenter put it best when she asked if we'd be able to live with ourselves if we did nothing, and the answer has been no for us so far. I also want to add something I forgot to clarify in my first post. Emma didn't say what she did out of the blue. She had been vocal about the pastor talking politics for some time according to the band, and I've seen much of it too. However, a lot of people sent DMs disagreeing with the band's decision. So before I get into it, I want to give specifics of what the pastor has done. The pastor mentioned Trump from the pulpit numerous times, including the aftermath of the 2020 election, to voice discontent over the results. He has also celebrated Roe v. Wade's overturning from the pulpit, Pride Month during June, and even compared Trump's legal trial to how Jesus was persecuted leading up to his crucifixion. Things that have no place being vented about from the pulpit, and this has happened over the course of a few years. I received a few DMs in the aftermath of my first post, and some were encouraging while others not so much. A few people, who said they were Christians, said that Emma was wrong to use the microphone to hijack the service with her words because she should have talked to the pastor first while calling her actions immature. However, when I showed the band the advice from my posts, I also told them about the DMs, and they said that Emma spoke to a leader about the pastor's political sermons in the past. But nothing came from it as he continued to speak politics from the pulpit frequently. Some people also said that our walkout wasn't godly, because we, like Emma, would be hijacking the service for a publicity stunt when church was supposed to be about God. Some people called us immature, among harsher things. But we disagree for two reasons. First, who is supposed to call out the misuse of the pulpit if not people who attend the same church where it's misused? A few DMs said to do nothing and pray for God to change the pastor's heart, but he's been doing this for years. And second, the Bible gives guidance on how to call out improper behavior in the church in Matthew 18:15, 17. Dealing with sin in the church. 15. If your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault, just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. 16. But if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. 17. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church, and if they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or a tax collector. Emma has already talked to a leader one-on-one, and the band has voiced displeasure about Emma's ban to the youth pastor, only for him to disagree and say that Emma was out of line. Regarding the part about tell it to the church, I suppose the how might be up to interpretation. Maybe telling the church means telling a church leader instead of the congregation on stage. But Emma and the band have talked to various leaders, including an elder too, aside of our youth leader, only for years of political rants from the pulpit to continue. When Jesus flipped tables in Matthew 21:12, we believe he did it because people were using the temple to sell things that had nothing to do with God, And we believe that politics falls into the same boat. Someone commented a link in the comments of my first post that I never saw. But I showed the band and we couldn't agree with it more. I still plan to speak with my parents ahead of 8 quarters, and I'll share the write-up the band is working on really soon. I really appreciate everyone who commented too. Lastly, I want to clarify that the walkout is the band's decision entirely. I am not a member of the band, I just do PowerPoint lyrics during youth, and I'm not even in the band's group chat with Emma. As some of the band members are contemplating punishments from parents, 2 seniors who are concerned with their parents removing tuition help, I will support whatever they decide while understanding that they have to take care of their future too, as many commented. If they decide to continue with the walkout, I will support them and walk out from the pews. But if they change their mind because repercussions are too great, I will respect that and continue to support them. Second update. I meant to get back to this sooner, but some things happened on and after 8 quarters. Since my previous post, the band decided not go through with the walkout, and Emma was a big reason why. The band told me that Emma spoke to them a few days before 8 quarters after she spoke to another bandmate who voiced concern. The girl who spoke to Emma was 15 and confided in her about physical abuse fears from her parents, and Emma spoke to the band on behalf of those fears. Emma also referenced some of the fears that the senior bandmates had about losing tuition support and told them that it wasn't worth risking their futures. Emma, unlike the band, had a full-time job to support herself, but some of the band was still tied to their parents for years. She pretty much told them to go with their gut if they had fears about repercussions from their parents, as the 15-year-old girl had, and the senior who feared losing tuition said that his parents threatened him with it in the past about something else, which is why he thought of it. I wasn't present when the band spoke to Emma because I'm not a member of the band, I only do PowerPoint lyrics and they tell me what songs before youth group, but they told me and the other PowerPoint girl afterward. So instead of playing on 8 quarters, the band collectively, and privately, resigned to the youth pastor at youth group the Friday before 8 quarters, and none of them played on 8 quarters. They also told their parents that they would before doing so, and a few of the bandmates said they were never forced to join the youth band by their parents. They simply volunteered. But that didn't mean they weren't gonna say anything about Emma's treatment. They just wanted to in a safer environment that wouldn't risk embarrassing their parents in front of the congregation, which could cost them privileges. Instead, they decided to share their write-up with Emma, who was planning on posting her own explanation of her ban from the church. Emma posted her explanation along with the band's write-up to her socials on 8 quarters regarding why the band collectively resigned, and a few bandmates decided to repost it on their socials. Emma also tagged the church's social in her post and believed that the walkout would do more harm to the band than good, so the social media route was a slightly better alternative. Not as many people will see it, but we believe potential rumors and gossip might do their thing. A few of the bandmates also told their parents that they would no longer attend that specific church. And while a few of them argued with their parents, perhaps it was less than the would have been backlash of embarrassing them with a church walkout. The 15-year-old girl ended up attending church on 8 quarters, but the seniors didn't, although they ended up returning the following Sunday. None of them, including myself, have attended youth group since the Friday right before 8 quarters, and I didn't attend on 8 quarters either. 2 unexpected things also happened. I received a DM from someone who said that they were from a Christian news outlet. And while I never heard of their outlet before, they asked permission to share the band's story in one of their newsletters anonymously, not including the band's names or the churches, and the band said they'll pray on it and weigh the decision. Additionally, a pastor reached out in DMs and said that he was encouraged by their story. He also said that pastors were supposed to hold each other accountable and asked for the name of the church so that he could reach out pastor to talk, but Emma and the band are undecided on this at the moment. They said they're going to pray on it along with how it's important to make sure it's a real pastor and that no harm will come to the church, and I told the pastor that I'll get back to him. Emma also told the band that her parents haven't talked to her much since her church statements, and that's because of arguments that they had. Some people thought that Emma's parents left the church in support of their daughter getting banned, but that wasn't the case. Her parents were banned too, and Emma said they didn't appreciate being blindsided by Emma's statement and received some backlash for them. Emma still stands by everything she said, but they aren't talking at the moment. The last thing I'll say is about me and how I feel about everything, and I'll leave the band's statement from Emma's post afterward. This was the last straw in a long line of stuff for me from this particular church, but it goes further than that. I struggle to understand how parents can care more about church appearances more than the needs and desires of their kids, and I'm not talking about bad things. I'm talking about normal things, and Emma's statement said it better than I could. Emma said that God gave everyone free will, but the 15-year-old girl vented about physical abuse in regards to not wanting to go to church in the past, and that is the opposite of what God taught. God didn't force people to believe in Him, but some parents take away privileges if they refuse to fall in line with God and their church. I barely even have any friends myself, and I'm not even in the band group chat. The band told me everything secondhand and none of them are my friends. They hang out together outside of church, but I only have one other friend from church because I've been homeschooled for all of my life because my parents think public school is too secular. I can't even do official sports aside from sports played in the church field that our homeschool group uses, so I can't do leagues or be on any teams like high school. I just wish my parents would have let me go to school, but apparently they don't think their religion is strong enough for me to go to school and supposedly not lose my faith. Kinda like they've been keeping me on training wheels for 17 years. Personally, I need a break from church. I know not all churches are bad because the one I happen to grow up in is questionable, but I've decided I'm not a Christian because I said the salvation prayer when I was like 7 or 8, and I don't think that counts. You don't know what you believe at that age because all you have is heavy bias from your parents, and I need a break to be unbiased in the future after my pastor has made some questionable decisions in recent years, venting politics in the church like the people who sold things that weren't of God before Jesus flipped tables. I'm going to try and learn about other religions because Christianity is all I ever knew, so I've stopped considering myself a Christian internally of late. Doesn't mean I'll never return, but I need a long break from Christianity because just thinking of modern Christians makes me sick. Too much hate disguised as Christianity and political overlap. I know there's good ones, but I have to broaden my perspective. And without a long break, I won't be able to be non-biased in my search. I've also argued with my parents about how I'll no longer attend church, but this is getting too long. Some of the band has faced punishments for not going, and that is the epitome of what's wrong with their twisted version of Christianity, so I hope a break will help me reset in some ways. The band's statement talked about how they would no longer attend the church, but I'm not sure if their parents were the reason they returned on Sunday morning after 8 quarters. Regardless, here is the write-up that they shared with Emma, and it's longer than what they likely would have been allowed to say before the walkout if someone cut their microphone, which is an advantage of social media in this case. This is the band write-up that Emma posted alongside her explanation of how she was banned. As Christians, we are called to worship Jesus Christ. But how does one become a Christian? By making a choice no one else can make for us, but the last part is something too many Christians forget. Jesus never forced anyone to follow him. Joshua 24:15 tells us to choose whom we will serve. But many have forgotten the part about free will and believe that fusing religion with conservatism is the way. The sole purpose of Christianity is a personal relationship with God. It has nothing to do with Christian nationalism, and those who try to use our faith as an excuse to control others are false prophets. As Christians, we shouldn't judge others because we are not God. But since our church has banned Emma and lied to the youth about how she chose to leave, we can no longer play or remain in a church where the pastor uses the pulpit to preach other than the gospel, and we pray that the true Spirit of God returns someday. New update. Something has been bugging me recently that I need to get off my chest, and I will at the end. I have not attended church in a few weeks, and I hope I never do again. My parents aren't thrilled, and we've talked about it. They haven't forced me to come, but this situation was the last straw for me. Since my previous update, one of the senior bandmates called to see how I was, and he gave an update on what's been happening since Emma's post that featured their statement. The senior who called me, John will say, has started community college. The other senior whose parents threatened to withdraw tuition has not. That senior was punished for quitting the band. The senior who called me was not. The 15-year-old girl who replaced Emma as the lead singer was forced to return to church by her parents along with another boy who was in the band too. Emma remained in contact with the band after the post, and he briefed me on what's been happening with her. Emma encouraged the two seniors to find a new church. The senior who was punished said he wasn't interested and only attended church because his parents forced him for much of his life. He also said he wouldn't attend church in the future because he wasn't ever really religious to begin with. The senior who called me, and wrote most of the statement, said he was tired of church hypocrisy and that the situation made him never want to attend church again, instead opting to practice privately on his own. Emma was sad that the situation soured their opinion of church, but she was also not looking for a new church to take time to find herself. When John asked if I would look for a new church, I told him no, but wasn't too specific other than saying I was tired. I'm going to be more and more specific here because some things have really been bothering me. A lot of comments said that we gave them hope for future generations of Christianity. But just reading that pissed me off personally, and I'm gonna be more blunt than my previous posts. Personally, I hate modern Christianity in this country. I know it's not God's fault that many Christians are so hateful these days. But my distaste goes years before this incident because I feel like I never had a childhood. I'm fucking homeschooled for all my life because my parents think public school is too secular. Don't have many friends besides one, and my social skills suck because my only exposure is Sunday service and youth group twice a week. They police what I wear because of purity, and they didn't even let me do sports or anything fun that kids do growing up. But more than that, I'm scared with no one to talk to. My parents based my entire life on a religion that has no proof of its existence whatsoever. And when I tried to voice my fears in the past, they say I should know better, which is not substantial evidence. What's gonna happen when my time on earth ends if there's no God or judgment day? All of my life would have been wasted on invisible beliefs, never truly living to please something that doesn't exist. I'm honestly terrified of that. Who am I to blame one day if they were wrong? I won't be able to blame anyone because it'll be too late. That doesn't seem like a way to live life. It's already too late for me to have a childhood. I just hope someone can ease my fears until I can afford to talk to a professional, so I'll keep my DMs open for any advice despite seeing a few comments calling me and the band cowards for not doing the walkout. It hurts to see comments saying that we gave hope for future generations of Christianity because Christianity is my parents' reason for never giving me a childhood. I'm done with Christianity because of that fear. I don't have enough substantial evidence to base my life on a what-if invisible God, and I'm already 17 having barely lived at all. I want to go to college, live a little, sometimes drink and date someone not in church because it's my last chance before 9-5 working for the rest of my life, but I can't do that with constant guilt from purity and everything else extreme Christians try to guilt you with. Many thought I was passionate about Christianity from my last posts. But to be honest, I've hated Christianity long before this mess as a result of my distaste for homeschooling. It just felt good to be able to stick it to the church with the band's walkout idea and eventual post, using their scriptures against them for a change. But by no means am I passionate about Christianity when so many people use it to control lives like mine through homeschooling, and I hate that I know so much of the Bible too. And when you add how hateful and politically infused it has become in recent years, I want nothing to do with it because I don't want to be associated with it. Left my fiancée due to her abusive family. Weeks later, she's gone forever. I uncovered affairs and lies that shattered our entire friend group. I've been dating my fiancée for 4 years and engaged for 7 months. We were trying to arrange our wedding for the fall of next year. To put it plainly, her childhood was horrific. Her parents were raving narcissists, and she became the scapegoat for her 2 brothers. She was abused and expelled the moment she turned 18. However, she was an excellent student and a diligent worker. With several scholarships and part-time work, she established a successful profession and became self-sufficient. The trouble, however, was that she maintained communication with her family. None of them have changed. In fact, they have grown more financially reliant on her. They gradually re-entered her life, emotionally blackmailing her for support. They're not happy about it either. They're rude, condescending and generally enjoy being a nuisance, but my fiancé can't say no, no matter what terrible things they say or how blatantly they try to intimidate her. I've always been aware of her family history and have supported her in dealing with it. However, during the last year, they've grown significantly more aggressive and disruptive. They are becoming increasingly frequent visitors to our home, leaving messes everywhere. Her mother behaves like Cinderella's stepmother. Her father consumes all of my beer and depletes half of the refrigerator, and her brothers pay visits sometimes, serving as mouthpieces for their parents. They practically trashed the place and left us to clean it up. Meanwhile, my fiancé is standing quietly in the corner, virtually shivering. I'm no fool. I understand the legitimate trauma and her desire to feel loved by them. She hopes they will eventually appreciate her. In case you were wondering, she has been in therapy for years to address this. For over 2 years, I've attempted to set boundaries and push these people away, but this is her house. She bought it. And no matter what my financial or emotional contributions are, she won't let me have a say in who comes over. She recently informed me that she wants to gain their acceptance, that they were correct about her, and that she must improve for their sake. We've had several emotional chats, full of tears and begging, in the hopes that she'll take action to improve. However, she is an adult, and I cannot force her to do anything. I love her, but I can't help but be resentful of what she's doing. It's heartbreaking to see someone you care about, who deserves so much better, blatantly ruin themselves for individuals like her family. I've tried numerous times to help her escape their grasp, but I have to think of our future. What happens when we have children? What happens if she is postpartum and invites them over? What if there is a medical emergency or our funds are short and they continue to demand money? This is the in-law family from hell, and I'll be unable to avoid them. Tomorrow, I'll inform her that I want to postpone the wedding until definite boundaries are created. If she resents it, I will leave. I can't take it any longer. I refuse to see this creeping devastation. Update. I spoke with her and everything went as expected. I'm now staying in a motel for a few days while planning my long-term move. There's still a lot going on right now, but perhaps by next week I'll be able to compile everything into a single update. Update 1. The night after I posted the first post, I decided to have a conversation with my fiancée regarding her family. However, she returned from work early the next day, and as I was already off that day, I started the conversation earlier than I had intended. Essentially, I warned her that this arrangement was unsustainable. I did not feel comfortable marrying her because of how involved her family is in her life, and I certainly did not feel good bringing a child into the world with them present. I didn't want to advise her to break off communication with them totally, but I did ask for strong restrictions on when they could come over and what they could do around the home. I also requested couples treatment before getting married. She was not pleased. She simply stared at me fiercely as I spoke, then began shrieking after I finished. She said I didn't understand their relationship, but it worked for her. I told her they were abusive users who would bleed her dry, and I had never seen them treat her with kindness. She reacted by claiming she simply needed to work harder for people to appreciate her. I basically yelled back that a child shouldn't have to beg, plead, or work to be loved by their parents. Finally, I informed her that either she established limits for them or I'd walk. She was furious, and as I was living in her home, I was booted out. I've been staying at a hotel for the past few days and my belongings have been taken out and stored. Frankly, it's been fantastic. I want to spend a few weeks with my family around mid-July before commencing house shopping on my own. I've spent the last few days relaxing, catching up on movies and video games that I hadn't had time for, and returning home to a peaceful room without her family tearing it apart. Things finally came to a head yesterday. We've had almost no contact since she kicked me out, but I know her family loves to spend the afternoon at her house every Saturday, and she generally uses me as a shield from their abuse. In a pretty selfish action, I simply left my phone muted all day and listened *Disco Elysium*. I knew she'd call for help with her family, but at this point sheer hatred had set in, and I didn't want to deal with her concerns. By the end of the night, she'd texted me over a dozen times and left 2 desperate voicemails urging me to come home. I decided to go over and check on her. Long story short, she was sobbing in the living room, and when I approached her, she literally crushed my back, clinging and crying. I waited for her to calm down before asking what had happened. Apparently, her mom and brother stopped by to demand money and utter awful things to her. She asked me to come help, but I had been ignoring her. When she sought to get assistance from one of her pals, everyone essentially said no. That's when it all clicked for her, and she eventually kicked her family out. But not before they said some truly terrible things to her, which I will not repeat. She repeatedly apologized to me and told me to come home. I told her openly that I had been harboring strong feelings of anger toward her for some years, and that while I loved her and knew that it was trauma rather than her being outright abusive, there were huge issues that needed to be addressed before we could move forward. First, she sells the house and relocates. We make nearly the same amount of money and plan to buy a property together. I am an adult man, and I will not live in a home where I have no equal agency. Second, her relatives will never enter it. They will never come over, and if they do, I will treat them in a hostile manner. Third, she sees a new therapist and we begin premarital counseling. Fourth, she never forced me to interact with her relatives again. Fifth, we will maintain little communication with her family for the time being, but make no mistake. We are moving toward complete no contact from her end. I told her that I loved her. We've been together for a long time and have wonderful memories, and I know she's been abused. But these conditions cannot be changed. If she has a problem with any of them, we will have to part ways. She informed me she's known for a while that her family is poisonous and unhealthy, and she wants to make changes, but some of them will take time to manifest. For the time being, I plan to stay in the hotel till I return to see my family. She is welcome to come over, but I have made it obvious that her home is not a place I want to be. We both have the day off tomorrow, so we'll spend it here and maybe go out. This is definitely not over yet. But I may not publish again until mid-August or so. Update 2. Despite my best intentions to not update until much later, with the hopes of improving my relationship with my fiancée and her establishing boundaries with her toxic family, we have now split up. Essentially what occurred was that after last weekend, when I left her to deal with her family on her own, she appeared to fully understand the issue and was open to adjustments, including limits and a possible transfer. We spent Monday and Tuesday hanging out at my hotel before I returned to my family for a few weeks. She was scheduled to come over the previous night, but her texts were pretty ambiguous. She arrived considerably later than usual, and I sensed something was wrong. She basically went off on me, calling me abusive, overbearing, extremely demanding and unsupportive. It took me 5 seconds to realize she was reciting a planned speech from her parents. To be honest, I was so irritated at this point that, despite taking a tremendous risk on her, I chose to be a jerk about it. I questioned if her relatives had told her to say this. She said they proposed it, although she came up with it herself. Sure. I requested her to explain in detail what I had done wrong. She stated I was parasitic on her. I reminded her that I was paying 50/50ths for her mortgage, electricity and groceries, and that I own and pay for my own car, as well as a job that pays the same as hers. Unlike her parasitic parents, who demand cash every week and loot the kitchen on weekends. I advised her to try again with something better. She appeared flustered and said I was attempting to isolate her. I smirked and informed her that I had always supported her many friendships, which she ended on her own since no one wanted to deal with her family or be used as a shield like me. At this point, I was nearly demanding to know why she was so determined to wreck her life for these individuals. She simply shouted that I don't understand her family and that she's just trying to reclaim their affection, and she was really ranting at that point. It's really incredible to see up close. I went to a few subreddits to get perspectives, and if you're familiar with them, you'll see how people who have been abused by their own family can be so completely broken that it wrecks their brain to the point where they believe they are the problem and deserve the abuse. That was exactly how she was. Completely shattered and unable to accept help. She didn't want to improve. She only wanted to get worse. The knowledge hit me hard, like a truck. I felt like a fool for attempting, even though it was what I was supposed to do in the first place. She was virtually insane by this point, and I was simply mentally weary and needed her to go before the cops arrived. She eventually went, but a few concerned neighbors checked on me. Some of her friends are aware, as they have messaged me to inquire about the situation. I told them the truth. I needed to be alone to think about what to do next. They have now revealed that she has delivered similar rants in response to their concern for her. One had even heard that she could lose her job. She is certainly taking a mental break from my understanding. She is now fully alone, plunging into a miserable, lonely existence. There's nothing I can do for her at this point, and as selfish as it may sound, I'm simply relieved it's over. Update 3. Things had mostly been wrapped up, but there remained a few loose ends. I absolutely failed to change my mailing address, which I should have done right away, so a few crucial things were delivered to her residence. I had to go get them, as well as a few other items I had left behind that I had decided I wanted to keep. She was being difficult and did not answer messages about them, so I had to go retrieve them myself. I had brought a common acquaintance just in case. Fortunately, she was cooperative in allowing me to retrieve my belongings, which was not a big deal. Everything else was another story. She said a lot of unpleasant things to me, including how she was already sleeping around, how pleased she was that I was gone, and how she was finally free from me. She said she'd be so much better off without me. All typical insults and dreadful things you'd expect from a bad breakup. You know what? It was clear that it was a scripted script from her family, and you could tell she was miserable. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. The house was a mess. She wasn't even yelling. She sounded drained and broken as she said it. She didn't even smile as she spoke. Her face was distorted with hatred and wrath. She wasn't the lady I knew anymore. That individual was gone. When I was about to leave, she was still going on. I got fed up and told her something like, "Congratulations, your friends are gone, your human shields are gone, your engagement is over, and your support is gone. Anyone who has ever treated you with dignity is no longer alive. It's only you and your family. I hope you're content while they bleed you dry." It most likely did not go precisely as described, but something similar. She simply stood there, stared at me indifferently, and walked away as I walked out the door. Tiffany, a common friend, inquired about my well-being as we were leaving. I reassured her that I was and explained that I was only preparing to return home next week. She also confirmed that she had heard that my ex had been fired for failing to show up for work for several days and effectively disappearing. They're going to try an intervention next week and have asked if I can participate, but I'm not postponing my trip because frankly, I just want a clean break. I know that if I continue involved, I will only see a steady decline into either a complete breakdown or suicide. I simply cannot do that. Despite this, I'm excited about the future. I realized I overlooked far too many red signs in the beginning. Despite all that has transpired, I am confident that I will do well. I expect this to be my final update. I'm still in town till Sunday afternoon, so something may happen while I'm here, but it won't be exciting. Update 4. I'm currently in my home state visiting family, reacquainting myself with the place. I've decided to stay here permanently and have begun the long process of looking for properties in the region. I've been doing well, going out with friends and family. A handful of mutual friends with my ex-fiancée have told me what's been going on, and things appear to be improving. The intervention was supposed to take place on Sunday, but Saturday night after her family paid her another visit, she called pals in a fit of mania. It appears that she has now realized how horribly she screwed up. It was a full-blown panic episode and meltdown that landed her in the emergency room. Needless to say, she finally admits how miserable she is and how horribly she has messed up her life. Apparently, she attempted to phone me, but I had blocked her. She still has a job, and the information about her losing it was incorrect, but she is hanging by a thread there. Her supervisor has effectively told her to take a few weeks off work to clear her mind. Her friend circle is quite close. My ex was a really helpful and supportive friend, so it's understandable that her friends are going to such lengths to aid her. However, there is an implicit agreement that if she returns to her old ways, they will all allow her to sink on her own. She's doing as well as can be expected, however her family has continued to bother her with phone calls and messages. They attempted to visit her residence but were strongly redirected by friends and neighbors. I hope she understands the type of support system she has. As trashy as family arguments generally are, her parents and brothers have taken it to Facebook, which, according to what I've heard, has worked to my ex's advantage. It has exposed their behavior to a larger audience and appears to have silenced them for a short time. Finally, she had one of our common friends deliver a note to me. Essentially, she was confessing that all of the horrific things she said to me were lies and that her family had pressured her to say them, which I had known all along. She apologized for how things ended and hoped we could reconnect someday. Unfortunately, I had to explain that we needed to stay apart for good and that she should focus on her recuperation. I informed her that while I still care for her and wish her the best, this was our final goodbye. The message appears to have been sent and her friends are assisting her in processing it. She has a long way to go, but I hope she finds peace as I do. Comments. OOP regarding the ex's parents' opinions. OOP, they simply tried to play the "your daughter is ungrateful and cruel" card with close friends and family, only for a slew of people to call them out on their actions. Take this with a grain of salt, as it is unsubstantiated, but according to one source, in retribution, people began phoning one of the brothers' workplaces and leaving critical reviews on their Facebook page, airing all of the dirty laundry. It's not going well for him, although this is unconfirmed. Top comment. Her parents and brothers have escalated their family feud on Facebook. There were no falsehoods discovered. I applaud OOP for avoiding that disaster as much as possible. It's much better for this woman if she understands that her decisions have real repercussions, and if she doesn't want such consequences in the future, she needs to perform serious self-improvement. Update 5. I've been doing pretty well since I returned home. All of my belongings arrived safely, and I am now living with my family while I look for a new home. I've set up my employment here and have been back at work for the past week. I occasionally come here to comment and post, but that is all. Unfortunately, despite the best intentions of my ex's friends, the scenario has now ended in the worst possible way, and the friend group has been fractured as a consequence. My ex took her own life. Almost everything I'm about to say I learned last night. Since I left, her friends had been assisting her in getting back on her feet, encouraging her to seek better therapy, establishing boundaries with her family, and getting her out of the house. They definitely went above and above. Tiffany, the friend who was there to help me the last time I spoke face-to-face with my ex, became suspicious when she noticed my ex being touchy-feely with her boyfriend Daniel, while they were hanging out at her place. I don't sure exactly when things progressed, but Tiffany ultimately got hold of her boyfriend's phone when he was sleeping and discovered highly sexual messages between him and my ex. These texts were more than 5 months old, which surprised me greatly. Tiffany clearly lost it and informed everyone. Nobody could have predicted the drama that unfolded. Daniel, Tiffany's now ex, threw another member of the friend group, Joseph, under the bus, alleging he had covered for him. Joseph's girlfriend in turn dumped him and kicked him out of her home. A friend group of about 9 people, including my ex, nearly imploded. Tiffany and Joseph's ex are the only ones that continue to communicate. Mind you, when I was being told all of this, I was informed that, despite the fact that I had been gone for almost a month, everything had occurred within the first week of my absence. My ex immediately lost her entire support system and was accused of everything. This simply exacerbated her already deteriorating mental health. Of course, everyone was curious as to why she had done such things to one of her closest friends. She simply stated that they had become close and that he was a terrific support system for her. Of course, she'd told her family about him, and they approved of him over me. She asked him over the night I left for the motel. Apparently, her ultimate goal was to leave me for him. He wouldn't leave Tiffany for her, and he despised hearing about her family, so he certainly wouldn't pursue anything other than a hidden affair. I expected to be much furious than I was, but I had already started to move on. I had just had a comprehensive health exam at my new doctor's office and received a clean bill of health, with no STDs, so I didn't have to worry about that. Getting outraged would be counterproductive at this stage. I was told that I was informed late because no one knew how to break the news to me, which is understandable. So yep, my ex was absolutely shunned, even by Tiffany's ex, who simply disappeared. She was blocked and left to cope with her troubles on her own. Tiffany simply knew that she had lost her work for good and spent all of her leisure time with her family. They had finally triumphed, in a sense. It was discovered 2 nights earlier that she had committed suicide at home. Her relatives discovered her. When the medical team arrived, one of the old friends from the neighborhood showed up. Her family was there and they didn't seem to care. Tiffany contacted me last night just to let me know. There were other messages, and she asked me, as gently as possible, if I wanted mine for closure. I honestly don't know what to do about it. I'm experiencing a lot of mental whiplash right now. I never knew this woman. I've had to acknowledge over the last month, since returning home, that she was abusive in our relationship because of everything she put me through with her family. Now it appears that it was a ploy to drive me away so she could be with another man who her family appeared to like. This confuses me even more, because what did he have that I didn't? Did they simply love watching her life fall apart? Was there anything real about her? Was there anything real about the folks with whom I spent years of my life? Returning home was the best decision I've ever made, and I now have complete evidence of that. I can begin therapy to work through this issue, spend time with a group of individuals who are truly trustworthy in person rather than online, and have relatives nearby for support. But yes, this will be with me for a long time. Comments? Comment. Do not read the letter. It will do you no good. Give it to a therapist to read, have them reseal it in another envelope and let them decide whether or not you should read it based on your mental health. Or if it should be unread and burned. OOP, I'm not interested in the letter or anything related to them. It's time to go on with my life. I caught my wife cheating with her old fling on a hike. It turns out she and her friends had been using him as a surrogate joystick. I, Ali, 38, am currently on a camping hiking trip with my wife Liv, 36 and 3 other married couples, Dom and Kate, Sean and Sarah, Bill and Miranda, as well as Liv's longtime friend Ian, 38 and his boyfriend OD, whose real name is Orlando, and no, he was not named after the dog from Garfield. We're all in our mid-30s to early 40s and enjoy spending time outside. We've been wanting to go on this hike for a while. We camp at night and walk throughout the daytime. Everything was great until early evening on the 3rd day of our 8-day journey. We stopped to camp and my wife and I decided to explore the surroundings. We discovered a little waterfall feeding into a creek that followed the trail we had been trekking. It was roughly 5 feet tall and flowed largely onto rocky rocks below. My wife stated that she wanted to rinse off in the stream and waterfall but did not want to soak her clothes. I urged her to go for it because we weren't far from the others and the location was secluded enough. I responded, "If you make it quick you could be in and out in no time." She did exactly that, lingered for a moment before stepping out and air drying with a tiny towel. Ian arrived unexpectedly from behind some trees after she had quickly put her shorts and panties back on. My wife was still topless. Here's where everything got weird. Neither of them responded. She proceeded to dress casually, and Ian approached as if he had seen her naked 100 times before. He told us that Dom wanted us to know something, but I can't remember what. My wife and Ian exchanged small talk before we all headed back to camp. It is now day 5. The hiking track leads to a small town, where we want to spend the night at a local inn to rest, resupply supplies and recover. For the past 2 days, I've been thinking about what happened at the waterfall. I tried to keep my thoughts hidden, but my wife questioned me this morning why I was so quiet yesterday. I told her I was weary, but in reality, I can't stop thinking about something that happened between her and Ian previously. I would normally be less skeptical, but I know Ian is not gay. I've known him for around 8 years and consider him a friend. We husbands and OD are the outliers in this group, as the 4 wives and Ian have been buddies since college. I've asked my wife before if she's ever dated Ian, and she's always responded no. I also inquired if Ian and any of the other ladies in the group had ever been in a relationship, and she denied that too. I might be delusional, but their relationship felt too similar, especially since she was still topless. My wife is usually very conservative about her body, so her lack of reaction to Ian's presence struck me as odd. I have no tangible reason to believe anything is wrong, but I can't shake the sensation that there's more to their history than friendship. Am I being paranoid, or is this a red flag? I am really trying not to leap to conclusions. Update 1. It's early morning on day 6 and I wanted to give you all an update. I told my wife Liv about what happened at the waterfall. I wanted to talk to her while we still had some privacy before heading back out on the trail, and I'm glad I did. I started as non-confrontational as possible, simply remarking that it seemed strange that she wasn't concerned by Ian's presence despite the fact that she was topless. If she had responded in any other way, I would have dropped it, but she became really defensive immediately. Is this why you've been moody? It's not a huge deal. Everyone has seen breasts before, including Ian. You have to grow up. This truly alarmed me. She rarely reacts forcefully until she feels bad about something. I probed harder and she grew more reactionary and defensive, attempting to deflect and belittle every question I posed, with a dash of gaslighting thrown in. I finally had enough and told her, either tell me what's going on or I'm going to confront Ian, who you know won't lie. This is when Liv revealed that she and Ian had a previous sexual relationship. I became enraged and demanded to know why she lied to me after I had previously asked her about it. She claimed she did not lie. They never dated. It was simply an FWB, friends with benefits situation before we became formal. I asked her, startled and agitated, so you were sleeping with him when we first started dating? She retorted, you don't have to be so vulgar. I don't want to discuss this right now. Can't we have this conversation when the trip is over? I said, absolutely not. Either you tell me everything now, or I'll start interrogating your pals. I believe she saw how serious I was and decided to reveal the whole truth. The first part I already knew. She had a string of bad relationships and dating encounters. Liv ascribed a large portion of this to not getting to know the other person before leaping into bed with them. When we started dating, she asked if we could take it slow. I accepted since I was also seeking for something unique and I was extremely intrigued in Liv. She said I could date others until we chose to be official, but I told her I didn't want to date around and preferred to focus on one relationship at a time. She stated it made her really happy. Then she divulged something that would shock everyone if it became public. Liv, Kate, Miranda, and Sarah all had comparable FWB situations with Ian while dating their current husbands. Kate, who is now married to Dom, became fed up with dating the wrong guys shortly after graduation. During this time, she and Ian became FWB. When she met Dom, she urged that they take it slow and get to know each other before becoming intimate. Kate stated it was simple because she was still sleeping with Ian, meeting her sexual needs while focusing on the emotional part with Dom. Ian was happy with the arrangement, assuring her that it was all about finding her special someone. They would talk about Dom and sleep together, and when Kate realized she had found the one, they ended the FWB arrangement and she began her sexual relationship with Dom. They eventually got married. Kate later informed the other women about their agreement. Throughout the years, they each used Ian as a surrogate while looking for the one. I'm only the most current individual involved in this circumstance. I asked Liv to explain her role. The other women's marriages are their own business, but I was curious how this worked out for her. She informed me that after her former lover had too many narcissistic characteristics, she had had enough and wanted to meet a good guy, which I suppose was me. She asked Ian to help her in the same manner he had helped the other 3. Ian agreed, explaining that the whole affair was about finding her a life partner. I feel he was sincere in everything. He's a free-spirited type of person. I've had serious chats with Ian, and he's the type of person that will help anyone with anything. We play golf together and he has been in my life since I began dating Liv. I didn't realize he was so involved. Essentially, he would listen, offer counsel, and talk through her emotions so she could wait until she felt comfortable with me. I felt like throwing up. It feels like the entire relationship was a lie. Despite this, I continued to seek answers. I asked when she quit seeing Ian. She claimed it was when we became official. I told her that I thought we were formal when we agreed to date, so I asked her when she considered us official. She explained, dating does not constitute two people as a couple. When you asked me to commit and we had our first intercourse, we were official. She stated that she and Ian had been strictly platonic since that night. I mentioned, that was 7 months into dating. So you've been sleeping with him for 7 months? She became silent and I knew the answer. I said, let me be clear, I would pick you up for a date and we would go out and have a great time, holding hands, cuddling, kissing and making out. Then I'd drop you off and you'd meet Ian, sleep with him and brag about what a terrific person I am? She retorted, don't make it sound so dirty. I was appalled. I wanted to run but we were in the middle of nowhere and there was no way out except to keep walking forward. In retrospect, I wish I had just left, but instead I probed for more information. I inquired, when you say you slept together, do you mean you used him just to get yourself off, or do you mean you did all the positions, foreplay and kinky things that we do? She became very silent again. I gently stated, you must answer my questions. I need to know, and I will find out, whether it is from you or one of them. With that, I motioned towards the other rooms. She answered slowly, all of it, maybe even more than with you. The room began spinning, but I asked the dreaded question, when? When was the last time? She said, the night before our first time together. I'd never wanted to leave someone more than I did at that moment, yet all I could do was sit there in shock. She attempted to console me, but I ordered her to stay away. I needed time. With nowhere else to go, I gathered some blankets and pillows and slept on the floor at the foot of the bed. I passed out for a few hours, but I'm now up and making this update. I want to march out of here, but there's a 12-passenger van at the end of the route that I don't have the keys for. I'll have to stay with these people for another 2.5 days, with another half-day travel back. I do not know what to do. Part of me can understand the reasoning, but largely I'm heartbroken and believe our entire relationship was a scam. I feel like a silver medalist, not a champion. I also have an intense need to share everything with everyone, because all of these other guys are in the same circumstance. We are all here on false pretenses. I do not know what to do. I have about 1 hour till everyone gets up and then I'll have to face Ian and my wife. Am I overreacting? Is this marriage worth saving? I do not see how we can go back. Update 2. I'm back in the comfort of my own house. Unfortunately, I and several others may be facing divorce. I was able to keep it together for the majority of day 6, but I'm sure everyone could tell something was up with me. I remained quiet and pushed myself to get back to the van. I guess Liv grabbed Ian aside about lunchtime and told him what I knew. After that, Ian began attempting to buddy up with me and converse, despite my request that he leave me alone. He persisted a couple more times before I snapped and told him to stop it in a very strong manner. Liv intervened, and they both took the hint. I needed more time to process. The next 24 hours went relatively smoothly. Everyone just kind of left me alone. However, after snapping at Ian, his temperament altered dramatically. He shifted from his customary laid-back demeanor to becoming slightly distant with everyone. He would occasionally make subtle passive-aggressive remarks, nothing too explicit, but clearly intended at me. By the 7th night, we had set up camp and I had relaxed a little, being more friendly with everyone. We were sitting around the campfire, finishing up the last of our meals. People were conversing, joking and sharing stories. Billy told a long embarrassing story from high school. It was a very humorous story about him and his first girlfriend, and he acted like an idiot. When he was done, he said something like, I still can't believe I was ever that dumb. I still cringe just thinking about it. Ian responded, well, at least you grew up. Some people never grow up and overcome their past. He then stared at me with the most disdainful expression. In that time, I experienced an out-of-body experience and saw only crimson. The filter was gone and logic was out the window. It was on. You know, Ian, you are right. Sometimes we just have to face the past head on. Liv attempted to interrupt, but I disregarded her totally. How about we address the fact that you used to have **** all our wives while we were dating? When I stated it, even the insects were quiet. Oh fellas, didn't you know either? Yeah, while they were holding out on us to make a connection, I air quoted, our future spouses were using Ian here as their human dildo. Dom and Billy seemed perplexed and angry. Sean had a look on his face like he'd just walked in on his grandmother fapping, complete train disaster astonishment. But I wasn't finished. I turned to Dom. It was Kate who devised this incredible strategy. She realized that the secret to developing a long-term relationship was to take things slowly and get to know each other before getting into bed. All you need to deal with the impulses is a best friend who will blow your back out when you get home from your dates all hot and bothered. Dom jumped in at this time. K.U. Ali. How do you know this? Oh, I just found out 2 days ago that when I took Liv out for drinks, that wasn't going to be the only thing she was swallowing that night. At this time, Liv lost control and began yelling at me. Why the F*** are you doing this? You don't have to. However, she was cut short when Sean stood up. It is true. It is entirely true. Everyone fell silent and glanced at him. I have known since we were dating. I didn't realize it was also true for everyone else until after we got married. I apologize, Billy. I swear I didn't realize it was you too back then. Billy's expression was one of dread. Sean, we used to have double dates with Miranda and Sarah. We went out several times and then dropped them off at Ian's. Does that imply they? Sean simply stared at him and nodded. I quickly turned to Ian. 2 at once, you hound dog. Then in a fit of bravery, I howled like a wolf. Which in retrospect is pretty terrible, but at the time, I thought it was funny. Arguments broke out among the couples all around us, but an audible gasp and whimper caught everyone's attention. OD sat there, tears spilling down his face. He looked at Ian and said, lies. More lies. It never ends. You always do this to me, no matter how much I forgive or how many times I return your affection. He then slapped Ian and bolted down the trail. Ian ran after him. The other 3 couples mumbled under their breath at each other, then began walking away in different directions. I stood beside the fire, feeling triumphant. Liv approached me and said, I hope you're happy. I looked her in the eyes and replied, I've never been more ****ing happy with myself in my whole life. I'm currently 80/20ths on obtaining a divorce. I suggested we postpone any major debates until we were home, unpacked, showered and nourished, because the only thing she would achieve before then is push me to my limits. At that instant, she turned and entered our tent. The following day was the most embarrassing 7 hours of my life. Between the morning pack-up, the hike to the van, loading up and the 4.5-hour journey home, only around 19 words were spoken. Now I'm sitting in my bathroom, newly showered. I'm going to eat some chicken nuggets, drink 3 Dr. Peppers and then converse with my wife. I'm not sure where we're headed from here, or where anyone else will wind up, but I know it won't be pretty regardless. Update 3. It's been 4 weeks since we returned from our trip and everything seems to have crumbled. Dom and Kate are getting divorced. They have been together the longest of the couples and have a 10-year-old son. Dom took the revelation quite hard. In addition to being together the longest, they also had the longest courtship period, 9 months. It's been a difficult pill for him to chew because he remembers they didn't truly got intimate until he began to wonder if he wanted to stay in the relationship. Now that he knows the truth, no matter what Kate says, he will always believe the delay was due to her desire to continue being with Ian. I sat down with Sean and had a couple beers one night. Despite the fact that we just met through our wives, we've been very close friends over the years. Sean stated that Sarah was straightforward with him when they began dating. She informed him she intended to wait at least 3 months before having sex, but that she would still meet with her FWB. Sean liked her but told her he was simply casually dating until he knew for sure, which Sarah was fine with. So, unlike the rest of us, Sean had a clear decision. Sean discovered he was falling for Sarah 2 weeks before the 3-month period ended, following a few double dates with Billy and Miranda. He informed her he wanted to be exclusive. She broke the 3-month limit and they became intimate that night and haven't looked back. Both were completely honest about their adventures at this time, and it appears that their candor paid off handsomely. Sean informed me they had a brief dispute after the campfire incident because Sarah felt they should have excused themselves rather than getting involved, but they are doing well as a couple overall. I've also got an update on Billy and Miranda. They are in the initial stages of reconciliation. Billy is clearly and understandably struggling. He believes she cheated and uses words to excuse it. They dated for 6 months before getting married, and they have 3 children under the age of 7, so they both believe they must try to make it work for the kids. Billy's toughest challenge is recalling dropping both Miranda and Sarah at Ian's on 2 consecutive occasions, knowing she had a threesome arranged. It reduced him to a shell of his former self. Miranda appears to have attempted to explain that they only did something on one of those nights, and it was more akin to a reverse train than a full threesome. Once again, semantics are used as an excuse. Sean assures me Miranda is speaking the truth, because Sarah was the second party and acknowledged it wasn't a true three-way. But honestly, does it matter? Ian reached out to apologize. I told him to F*** himself, then blocked him. OD also reached out. I guess my revelation was the final straw for him. We have actually talked quite a bit over the last few weeks. We actually talked a lot over the course of a week, despite the fact that we had previously merely been cordial acquaintances. It turns out that Ian and OD had been on and off for 15 years. Ian presents a laid-back, selfless appearance to everyone else, but OD knows him to be incredibly self-centered and manipulative. Ian frequently breaks up with OD for brief periods of time or claims they are on a break so he can do whatever he wants without being labeled a cheater, only to return once he has had his pleasure. Looking back, OD sees that at least 2 of these breaks occurred during these dating situations. However, OD is the most upset since he has tolerated it for so long and has given Ian numerous opportunities. He says this was the final straw. He's returning to Santa Barbara and leaving Ian and the cold, nasty Midwest behind for good. Despite our exhaustion after the hike, Liv and I had the longest chat. I informed her right away that I was not interested in arguing, disputing, or anything like that. I said, "Tell me everything you want to tell me. I will not interrupt or ask questions until you finish, then I demand the exact same courtesy." She agreed. Her letter was filled with apologies and explanations. She would admit it was wrong, then explain why it was okay or point to a positive conclusion. She expressed her disappointment and hurt with how I behaved at the campsite, but she also realized that Ian deserved equal culpability for poking the bear. When she finished, she asked if I had any questions. I replied, "No." And then I began. I informed her that our entire relationship is based on false pretenses. I can see where you were coming from and why you tried the entire FWB thing. Your 3 best friends did it and scored excellent husbands before you. But on some level, all 4 of you had to understand that starting a relationship like this was wrong. It was tremendously distressing to learn that you were sleeping with someone else while we were getting to know each other, and I believe it impeded the natural progression of our relationship. I added, it has significantly altered my memory of our early days together. Do you remember that fantastic day we had approximately 4 or 4.5 months into our relationship? We spent the day together. It finished with us back on my couch, kissing, your shirt off, and me caressing you over your shorts. It was getting quite hot. You paused and apologized, stating you wanted to but weren't quite ready. You needed to be absolutely certain. I assured you that everything would be fine, and you gazed at me affectionately, kissed me passionately, and then departed. I stopped before saying, "I can only guess you left my place and went to Ian's." As she nodded, tears streamed down her face. I said, "I invested that energy in you. You chose to give it to someone else rather than returning it to me. I might have been able to get over this if it had ended in the 1st or 2nd month, when we were more relaxed. But after that, we spent a lot of time together and you maintained your relationship with him until the day before we became official. You enjoyed having us both. You did whatever mental gymnastics were required to justify it to yourself." I told her, "You may not realize it, but this last portion is the toughest part of it all for me. Learning that you were far more adventurous and exciting with him is like a dagger to the heart. It makes me feel like I'm second best, like I'm the retirement plan you choose, just good enough." She interjected saying, "No, not like that, I love you. He was only having sex, it was not real. That's how it is when they don't matter. It's simpler to be free and wild then." And so on. I waited for her to finish before saying, "Remember, we agreed it was my turn to talk." Afterward I remarked, "I see your point of view, but it is not mine. As your husband, I believe it is my responsibility to give you my full energy, emotional, physical, cerebral, and sensual. I believe I have accomplished this during the past 8 years. I believe you have given me your best in some areas, but I now see I have not received your best in others. And as a male, I have to acknowledge that sensuous energy is really essential to me. The fact that you did not trust me with all of your sensual energy was the determining factor. I do not think I can recover from this, and I want to file for divorce." The scene became chaotic from there. She started crying hard, asking, giving herself and pleading with me to start over. I eventually removed myself from the situation. Later, she mentioned that we were just in an emotional state right now and that I needed to give it some time. This gave me pause, and I agreed to her terms of 3 weeks. As I previously stated, it has been 4 years, and my feelings have been consistent. We met with a joint divorce lawyer, who will represent both of us. There are no children involved and we both want to sell the house, so the initial meeting went smoothly. She has been tremendously depressed, as have I, but this is for the best. Sometimes things simply don't work out. Thank you very much. My 12-year-old daughter left me for her rich stepfather. After losing her mother and being kicked out by her stepfather, she returns broke at 22. My ex-wife, then 41, female, and I, then 45, male, split up 12 years ago. She found solace in the company of a wealthy man. Sorry, there's no better way to put it. She was a stay-at-home wife and mother who had little interest in working or earning money. She wanted to stay at home and take care of the house and our daughter. I never forced my daughter to work after she was born, even though my finances were tight. I was working 2 jobs and earning enough money to eat well. However, my salary could not afford the luxury lifestyle she desired. I will not go into detail regarding my relationship with my ex. This piece is about Laura. Details regarding my ex-wife may be covered in another post. When Laura was 10, my ex-wife admitted that she had been sleeping with a wealthy man. She moved out on the same day that we filed for divorce. We became co-parents to Laura. Because I had 2 jobs and she didn't, we decided that I'd have Laura on weekends. I formed a strong bond with Laura. We have some fantastic adventure trips together. Even though the divorce was traumatic, spending time with her made me feel so much better. As time passed, I noticed Laura was delaying our meetings. Previously, every Friday, I looked forward to her email explaining what she planned to do over the weekend. However, the email's substance eventually changed to, "Sorry, I can't make it this weekend. We're going skiing," or, "We have other fancy sports or SL trips with stepfather." I initially ignored this, believing her stepfather was simply trying to keep her happy and that I should not be jealous. I eventually concluded Laura didn't want to see me as regularly. Our weekly meetings became bi-monthly, then monthly, only one day of the weekend. I saw she was not enjoying our time together as much as she used to. When it became clear that she was purposefully avoiding me, I challenged her. I tried to explain that I was doing everything I could to keep her happy, even overextending myself financially. Despite this, she continued to forsake our weekends together. She began lying, claiming she had schoolwork or projects on weekends when in fact, she was going out with her stepfather. Her excuses sounded real at times, but they were mostly made up. Whatever little time we had together, she would always complain about how much better it was going out with her stepfather since he doesn't look at the price tag before ordering anything. Even on trips I accompanied her on, she would prefer to spend time with her stepfather. She began grumbling about tiny inconveniences that previously did not disturb her. But she never stopped talking about the new PlayStation 5 or bike her stepfather gave her, or the expensive stuff her mother purchased. I felt she was too young to grasp that showering someone with material possessions is not love. The problem got worse when she ignored me for almost 3 months. Despite several calls and texts, I received no response. Desperate, I called my lawyer and told him everything. He informed me I could sue my ex-wife for alienating Laura. But Laura was 12 at the time and my lawyer advised that if she admitted in court that she no longer wanted to spend time with me, it may exacerbate the situation. Laura could say she needed more money to live up to her lifestyle, which could imply increased child support. Yes, I was already paying child support, despite the fact that her wealthy stepfather provided so much for her. I dropped the idea of suing my ex for custody. There was no purpose. My attorney advised we have a formal out-of-court conversation with them. It would help me understand what they wanted. I agreed to go this way, and my lawyer wrote them a letter with extensive allegations. He said that we desired an out-of-court settlement. I had a strange sensation that my ex-wife would refuse to talk since she had enough money and time to burn in a court action. To my astonishment, she agreed to discuss and resolve this matter in front of the attorney. My ex-wife's husband attended the conference, as did my ex-wife and Laura. They both swore they were beyond this and had no idea if Laura was ghosting me. They admitted they had no part to play in it and stood aside, allowing Lara to speak for herself. Lara then delivered the most devastating blow of my life. She demanded that I relinquish my parental rights. That was 10 years ago, yet I still remember the frightening event vividly. I was dead silent for, I'm not sure how long. My lawyer pressed me for a response, but I just stared at everyone. What do I say? When I looked at my ex-wife, her lips twisted into a smile, as if she knew what was going to happen. I took Lara's hand and murmured, "Baby, I hope you understand what you're saying. Giving away my parental rights would mean you could no longer call me dad. You would no longer be my daughter." She shook off my hand, stared straight in my eyes and said, "Yeah, that's what I want." I was astounded. I ran out of words to explain the implications of her decision. My lawyer attempted to explain the legal repercussions, such as property concerns and other issues, but she refused to change her decision. She looked at her stepfather and questioned, "Once he disowns me, you'll be able to adopt me as your daughter, right?" He nodded with wide eyes and replied, "Certainly, darling." Words cannot express the bitterness I felt at that moment. My world was destroyed, to say the least. I lost my sense of purpose in life. After my wife of 15 years cheated on me, Lara was the one bright spot in my life. She was the one I looked forward to after working 2 jobs. I didn't date anyone for 2 years after my divorce. I didn't have the time and didn't want to. I wanted to give Lara my complete love and attention. This is what I received in return. She wanted to get rid of me. My state was so pitiful that I couldn't think clearly. My lawyer borrowed some time to respond to them. I'm sure my ex and her husband slept well that night after seeing me in such a vulnerable position. My lawyer drove me home. After he went, I cried like a baby for hours in my empty house. My heart was filled with a wide range of emotions. I contacted my folks and informed them of Lara's desire. They were completely terrified and hurried over to comfort me. My parents, particularly my mother, were really close to Lara. She had been caring for her for over a year when my wife needed surgery and was forced to stay in bed. During that time, my mother took care of both Lara and my ex-wife. Mom gave it a go, but Lara insisted that I give up my parental rights. She passionately wanted to be her stepfather's daughter. He had informed her that he couldn't adopt her unless I relinquished my parental rights. I asked my lawyer what my choices were. He suggested we could sue them for manipulating Lara, but because she was 12, it would be difficult to show she was being manipulated. Besides, they had the money to pursue a long court action, whereas I did not. Plus, what's the sense of battling when the person I'm fighting for has already decided on their side? It was a lost battle. I had no choice but to swallow the bitter pill and give up my fatherly rights. I spent the next week wrapped up in my bed. I left my second job. Who do I work for now? I lost all motivation to get up in the morning and go to work. I took so many absences from my full-time job and struggled so hard that I was eventually dismissed. I moved to a different town, slept at a subway station, and walked around like a crazy person for days. I gradually got out of it, found a new job, went to the gym and enrolled in treatment. It took me around 2 years to recover. I didn't date, but I did go on a lot of solitary treks as a form of treatment. During one of these visits I met my current wife, Brianna. She had a 5-year-old daughter named Emma. After a while of dating, we moved in together. Brianna introduced me to Emma for the first time, and I broke down. She reminded me of Lara. I strongly wanted Emma to address me as Dad, but I held back. I did not want to damage myself again. I had a healthy but distant relationship with Emma. On her 12th birthday, Emma requested me to adopt her. I felt so overwhelmed. I now have 2 kids, Emma and Amy, a 3-year-old toddler, with my second wife. I believe I've provided enough context on my circumstance. Fast forward to a week ago. I was returning from work when I noticed a familiar face smiling at me. As I approached, I saw it was none other than Lara. I felt shivers, as if I had seen a ghost. She was taller, slimmer and much more attractive, but it was easy to recognize her. She ran up to me and hugged me, saying, "Dad, I'm your daughter Lara. I finally found you." I gazed at her with lifeless eyes and replied, "I have 2 daughters, but you're not one of them." Before she could say anything, I began walking away. She followed me, but I turned around and yelled, "Quit following me or I'll report you." I did not see her after that. The next day, she arrived at my residence. As soon as I opened the door, she exclaimed, "I apologize, I know you're angry with me but please hear me out. Mom has died and Dad, stepfather, has brought his mistress home. He doesn't love me as much as he did when Mom was living. He's cut me off financially and says I need to start earning my own money. When I pestered him, he threatened to disown me. I listened to her outburst and said with a straight face, "So what?" She began pleading with me for another opportunity. I screamed at her to leave and slammed the door in her face. She then went to my mother and apologized. She was able to persuade my mother with her emotions, and now she wants me to reunite with Lara for the sake of our family. The anguish she caused me is preventing me from reconciling with her. Am I in a *** hole? Update 1. Some of you inquired about my ex-wife, wondering whether she was a gold digger, if she manipulated Lara, or if it was my fault. So here's a quick background on my ex-wife. We dated for 2 years before we married. She worked at a neighborhood bar as a waitress while we were dating. I was a regular there, which is how we first met. She was living with a coworker. I worked one full-time job and lived in a studio apartment. That's when I acquired another job, saved more money and purchased a house to accommodate her. We were married, and she quit her work. For the first 6 to 7 years of our marriage, she was pleased and content with my salary. But then she began moaning about how her friends' husbands earned more money. She would even tell me that instead of settling for me, she should have waited longer to find a richer husband. It was offensive, and we would have fights. Of course, I couldn't just stand there and take the obscenities she hurled at me. Eventually, our connection became chilly and distant. One day, she revealed that she had been sleeping with a wealthy man and would be going out to live with him. I didn't beg her to stay, but I did warn her that these wealthy men regard women like her as toys. They play with them and then discard them when they're finished. She said she didn't rush things this time, and she'd been seeing him for 2 years. She trusted him enough to live with him. After that, I didn't have anything to say. I kept quiet and sucked it up. Some of you pointed out that Lara was just 12 when she requested me to disavow her, and that I should have battled for her. You are correct that she was a juvenile when all of this occurred, and I do not deny that she was emotionally and financially misled. When she became 18, she had the option of contacting me, but she chose not to. She's now 22 and is just seeking out since her stepfather cut her off financially. Someone questioned how my ex-wife died. I didn't ask Lara about it, but she informed my mother that her mother died from a serious illness. Lara also had a liver condition and needed surgery as a baby. The problem is that Lara is exploiting my mother's emotions in order to assist her reconcile with me. Instead of discussing it over the phone, I went to see my mother and discovered that Lara had fed her sob stories to win her back. She stated she was homeless, had no employment or money, and had been living on the streets since her stepfather kicked her out. My mother requested I meet her and I accepted for her sake. Mom contacted Lara, and she arrived within an hour. I probed her aggressively and all of the facts came out. It turns out that her mother and stepfather spoiled her so much that she never finished high school. She was too busy vacationing and dining with them to think about schooling or school. I'm not sure what that man was thinking by indulging her in this way. I'm not sure what her mom was thinking when she allowed this to happen. Lara insisted that everything she did and said, including the parental rights issue and the ghosting, was part of her mother's plan to embarrass me. I asked her why her mother would do such a thing. She said it was because I didn't make enough to purchase her mom high-end clothing and accessories, which had embarrassed her in front of her friends. Lara claimed her mother devised the scheme to shame and humiliate me in front of her new husband. Listening to this was really distressing because it brought back all of the traumatic experiences I had worked so hard to forget. I told Lara that the past was done, her mother was gone, so what did she want from me now? She asked me to accept her as my daughter again. When I questioned what would happen after that, she quickly said, "It means I would be your daughter, and you would have my back." I answered, "Okay, I will accept you as my daughter, but all you will get from me is love. I'm planning to give Emma and Amy my property, insurance money and savings. But I shall cherish you as my eldest daughter. Will that work for you?" She froze. After stammering for a time, she responded, "Yeah, we can discuss money later." "You are not going to make a will now, are you?" I said, "Yes, Emma and Amy are already identified as beneficiaries in my insurance and savings accounts. I also bought a house in the new city and gave it to my second wife Brianna. I won't change any of that for you. If you're good with that, bring me the document I signed giving up my parental rights, and I'll have my lawyer prepare a new one to overturn it." She answered, "Yeah, sure," but remained mute for the rest of the conversation. My mother offered her food, but she rejected, citing a pressing matter. 2 weeks have gone and she has yet to turn up. I pointed this out to my mother, adding that it was all about money. Lara backed off after I informed her I wasn't going to give her any. What a useless piece of work she is. Update 2. I warned you it was all about money, and it certainly is. Lara returned to my mother's house 2 weeks ago, despite the fact that we had last spoken 4 months ago. She looked awful, with red puffy eyes covered in dark rings and rashes all over her body, possibly caused by swallowing something she was sensitive to. She was crying and screaming for assistance. She demanded money from my mother. Lara explained that she had been living with a friend since her stepfather disowned her, but that friend had now thrown her out as well. She claimed to have sold the majority of her items to buy food in recent months, but she now had no money or possessions. Mom questioned why she hadn't acquired a job. Lara claimed she dropped out of school and no one would hire her. Mom recommended communicating with a friend who manages a bakery to see if she could get Lara a job as a cleaner or something similar. After all, there are many careers that do not require a high school graduation. Lara remained mute and wailed, asking my mother for money. Mom gave her some packaged meals and $100. She also questioned why Lara had not brought the paperwork to challenge the disownment. Lara stated that it was at her stepfather's place and that she would retrieve it next time. She accepted the money and food, then left. Mom didn't tell me about this visit at first because she assumed I'd be upset with her. 3 days earlier, Lara returned to my mother's house with the same sob story. Mom asked what she did with the money, and Lara responded she spent it on groceries. When Mom inquired about the job, Lara did not provide a direct answer. This time, Mom refused to give her any more money, claiming she didn't have any to spare and no more food. She simply handed her a loaf of bread. As Lara was preparing to leave, Mom inquired whether she had changed her mind about being my daughter. Lara responded, "What is the sense of having him as my father if he isn't going to give me any money? He has given everything to his beggar stepchildren." Mom was taken aback by her statements and chased her out of the house, threatening her not to return. Mom quickly called to tell me about both trips. I did feel upset with her for assisting Lara the first time, and I warned Mom to be cautious while answering the door at night. Based on Mom's description of Lara's appearance, it appears that she is engaged with bad company and may pose a threat to Mom, especially since she is living alone following Dad's death last year. We want to seek a restraining order against Lara in case she returns and causes trouble again. Today I went to my mom's residence. I went outside to see whether Lara was around, but I couldn't find her. I will be staying here for a week. I don't know what to do, but I'm sad about her. If what she said about my ex-wife is correct, my ex went too far in her attempts to disgrace me, destroying her own daughter's life. If Lara is lying about it, she has already paid the price for her nasty behavior. By the way, someone remarked on my previous post that everyone has the freedom to make their own decisions, and Lara wasn't bad for choosing her stepfather over me. She was simply on the wrong side. I suppose that's true. She made a decision 10 years ago, and she has to live with the consequences for the rest of her life.